Chapter 747. I finally found you. Dozens of streams of light arrived above the red-clothed guards. The leader of the group was sitting on an empty chair. He held a glass cup in his hand, and the cup was filled with fine wine. It was a young man dressed in a blood-red robe. His blood-red eyes were looking at Yan Honghua, revealing a playful look. Upon seeing him, Yan Honghua's body erupted with a biting cold killing intent. It's you. Countless memories surged in Yan Honghua's mind. In the end, it stopped at the scene of her parents being pierced through by a man with a spear, and the man sitting on the chair and leaving. Oh, you know me? The blood-red robed young man looked at Yan Honghua in surprise. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, I remember now. Your name is Yan Honghua, the young general of the general's residence in the 17th fortress, right? Your parents were killed by me. Die. Yan Honghua roared angrily and immediately rushed out. Her small world instantly unfolded. With a thrust of her spear, a terrifying spear force wrapped in Tao patterns, world energy, and the anger and hatred accumulated for decades. This spear strike was Yan Honghua's limit. But the blood-red robed young man did not move. A heavenly venerable behind him made his move. You're not qualified to touch the general. The heavenly venerable thrust out his spear and directly smashed onto Yan Honghua's spear, sending her flying hundreds of miles away and crashing thousands of feet into the ground. Be careful, don't kill her. The higher-ups have ordered that she must live, the blood-red robed young man said lightly. I know she's bait. The heavenly venerable nodded. Damn it, damn it. Yan Honghua rushed out. Although she had suffered some injuries, the anger in her eyes did not diminish. But other than anger, she was also unwilling. She had already advanced to the heavenly venerable realm, but in front of her enemy she still could not fight back. She could not even defeat one of the enemy's subordinates. She was still too weak. No, but I have to at least let Bai Lichuan and the others leave. Yan Honghua glanced at Bai Lichuan and the others with a hint of determination in her eyes. Then she took out a dark red crystal. The crystal was surging with a large amount of resentment. This was her trump card. It was a crystal that had gathered the resentment of billions of lives on the battlefield. I've spent years and thousands of battles to forge this resentment crystal. It's time to put it to use today. Yan Honghua growled and crushed the resentment crystal in her hand. A large amount of resentment immediately gushed out, transforming into millions of vengeful spirits that covered most of the sky, letting out shrill cries. Countless evil spirits fused into Yan Honghua's body. Strange black lines crawled all over her body. She couldn't help but cry out in pain. Then she gripped her spear and rushed towards the Blood Clan Empyrean. Her aura is different. Be careful. Humph, in the end he's just a lower-level heavenly sovereign. The Empyrean who had blasted Yan Honghua away rushed out once again, stabbing out with his spear. But this time, a massive amount of resentment gushed out from Yan Honghua's spear, transforming into a malicious spirit that tore at him. What the hell is this? The heavenly sovereign's expression changed and he couldn't help but retreat. But as he retreated, Yan Honghua's attacks became even more violent. Spear strike followed by spear strike, and every spear strike was wrapped in shocking resentment. Kill, kill, kill. The resentment mixed with the Emperor Qi was like the wailing of millions of malicious spirits. The Empyrean's fighting spirit was greatly affected. Even though his cultivation was higher than Yan Honghua's, he was still at a disadvantage. Damn it, damn it. A mere lower-level heavenly sovereign, don't be too arrogant. The Blood Clan Empyrean roared and stabbed out with his spear. But this time, what welcomed him was an even more violent spear momentum. Yan Honghua stabbed out with her spear. Large amounts of resentment and Emperor Qi condensed into a black flood dragon that rushed out, directly tearing apart the Blood Clan Empyrean's small world and knocking away his spear before slamming into his chest. Puff! The Blood Clan Empyrean spat out a mouthful of blood. His bones and tendons shattered as he fell to the ground like a rag. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How could this be? Yan Honghua's figure flickered and appeared in front of him. She stabbed out with her spear, blasting his head apart. As for the blood-robed youth, the general that everyone was talking about, he had been sitting on that chair the entire time, sipping his wine and not moving at all. After going through such a great battle, not only did his aura not decrease, but it was also continuously rising. He said in a playful tone, gathering the resentment of billions of living beings on the battlefield, this cultivation method is quite unique. However, can you withstand the pain of 10,000 ghosts devouring your heart? Yan Honghua gripped her spear, the strange black patterns on her body constantly squirming. The shadow behind her constantly twisted under the sunlight, faintly emitting mournful wails that made one shudder. If I can't kill you, I will feel even more pain. Yen Honghua stared at the blood-robed youth, her voice hoarse, like a beast that had been bitten full of holes, filled with bone-deep hatred. After saying that, she charged towards the blood-robed youth, but the Empyreans around the blood-robed youth blocked her at the same time. Do you really think we don't exist? Heh, there is no need for the general to deal with you. Several Empyreans attacked together. For a time, small worlds erupted, suppressing Yen Honghua, making it difficult for her to move. Roar? Yen Honghua let out a low roar. Resentment surged. Kill. She forcefully broke through the suppression of several small worlds. Her whole body seemed to have turned into a black ghost that shuttled through the air. Several Empyreans also attacked when they saw this. Swords, sabers, spears and other weapons clashed together. Yen Honghua's strength was indeed powerful by using resentment crystals, but it was still not easy to kill several Empyreans whose cultivation realm was far higher than hers. The battle fell into a stalemate. The blood-robed youth sitting on the chair yawned. He looked at the red-clothed guards not far away and chuckled. With a flick of his finger, a blood-colored energy shot out, blasting a red-clothed guard into a bloody mist. Bastard! Yen Honghua roared, her resentment surging even more fiercely. The blood-robed youth smiled faintly and said, "Back then, you must have felt very helpless when you saw your parents die in front of you. Now I will let you relive that feeling and watch your comrades die one by one." He killed another red-clothed guard with a flick of his finger. The red-clothed guards wanted to resist, but there was nothing they could do. Under the blood-robed youth's might, they could not move at all. They could only stay where they were, being hit by the blood-colored energy shot out from his fingertips. Bang bang bang, bloody mists exploded one after another. Yen Honghua was furious, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not defeat these Empyreans working together. Ah, how is it? Are you angry? Powerless? It must feel bad to watch your comrades die one after another. The blood-robed youth laughed loudly, and the energy shot out from his fingertips became faster and faster. Just as despair shrouded Yen Honghua and every red-clothed guard's heart, a bone-chilling voice suddenly rang out. You seem to be having fun. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the blood-colored energy shot towards the red-clothed guards was shattered by an invisible force. Right on the heels of that, a killing intent so cold that it made every single blood race cultivator present shudder descended from the sky. Chapter 748. An intense murderous intent descended from the sky and enveloped everyone present. All the blood tribe cultivators felt their scalps tingle. The red-robed guards looked up and saw a white figure descending from the sky. The aura emanating from his body shook the entire planet. It's Brother Chu. Bai Lichuan's eyes were filled with hope. Chu Kuangren's appearance was like a ray of light that completely swept away the despair. He's here. The blood tribe Heavenly Honorable's expressions changed slightly. Chu Kuangren was the ruler of the battlefield. They had heard many rumors about him in the past few months. As long as he appeared, the blood tribe would suffer a crushing defeat. To the firmament star cultivators, Chu Kuangren was the god of war, the light of hope. As long as he appeared, all difficulties would be easily solved. To the blood tribe, however, he was the god of death who would only bring despair. He's finally taken the bait. Retreat. The blood-robed young man glanced at Chu Kuangren. The aura emanating from Chu Kuangren made it impossible for him to resist. He took out a white crystal. It was a teleportation crystal. It could instantly teleport him back to the blood tribe headquarters from hundreds of millions of miles away. However, when he crushed the crystal and tried to leave, he realized that the surrounding space had been sealed by an invisible force. Unknowingly, a cage-like enchanted boundary had appeared around him. It was the realm-sealing Taoist weapon. Not good. The blood-robed young man's expression instantly changed into panic and helplessness. Initially, he had planned to execute this plan with the help of this teleportation crystal in his hand. It would allow him to leave freely. However, he did not expect this to happen. Chu Kuangren glanced at the crowd. Then, the descendant self-sword on his waist automatically unsheathed itself and blasted the Heavenly Honorables who were surrounding Yen Honghua away with a terrifying force. Those with slightly weaker cultivation bases exploded into a mist of blood on the spot. He then grabbed Yen Honghua in front of him. The spirit of omniscience, Xiao AI, activated to analyze her current situation. Brother Chu, I've absorbed too much resentment. There's no way I can survive this. I'll leave the red-robed guards to you. Yen Honghua said in a hoarse voice. Don't worry, you won't die. Chu Kuangren stretched out his 5 fingers and aimed his palm at Yan Honghua. A majestic suction force erupted and absorbed the resentment within her body. "Brother Chu, you can't?" Yan Honghua's expression changed. This resentment was so boundless that it was hard to imagine. She had used some kind of secret technique to activate it, but even so, it was still difficult for her to escape death. However, Chu Kuangren was unprepared for it. Even a top-notch heavenly honorable would not be able to withstand it. "Don't move," Chu Kuangren shouted. "Quick, kill him." When the blood-robed young man saw that Chu Kuangren was helping Yan Honghua resolve her grievous chi problem, he immediately wanted to take this opportunity to kill him. In any case, with the realm sealing sealed, they could no longer escape. He might as well give it his all. If they could kill Chu Kuangren, that would be a great achievement. When that happened, not only would he be promoted, the entire Sanguine race would view him as a hero. The Blood King would also favor him. At the thought of this, the scarlet-robed young man's eyes lit up. He attacked. He rushed out together with the other Empyreans. A dark red spear appeared in his hand, and surging energy fluctuations spread out. Blood Dragon Stab. Storm God Slash. The Empyreans unleashed their techniques and attacked Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren stood his ground calmly. An invisible barrier was formed. The Empyreans' attacks landed on the barrier, but it did not even cause a ripple. How is this possible? This power. While the Empyreans were still in shock, Chu Kuangren gently lifted his arm. His Emperor's Chi Taoist patterns intertwined, and his mini-world energy surged. Purple chains emerged from the void, and the world lock appeared once again. The Empyreans dodged left and right, but they could not escape the world lock's pursuit. Soon they were tightly bound by it. This power, how can it be? The scarlet-robed young man and the others were in disbelief. No matter what, they were still top-notch Empyreans, yet they could not fight back against Chu Kuangren at all. How could they believe this? However, the truth was right in front of them, and the world lock that bound them proved it. No matter what they did, they could not move Chu Kuangren at all. Chu Kuangren absorbed all the grievous chi in Yan Honghua's body into his own. He did not seem to be affected at all. The grievous chi had been completely refined into spiritual power and Emperor's chi. Grievous chi was also a type of strange energy. Most cultivators would not be able to control this energy, but it was nothing to Chu Kuangren, who had the universal cauldron physique. It was a nutrient for his cultivation. After absorbing the grievous chi, Chu Kuangren slowly walked to the blood-robed young man with a cold gaze. "You seem to be having fun just now." As soon as he said that, a sword chi slashed across. A bone-deep sword wound appeared on the blood-robed young man's body, and fresh blood gushed out continuously. No matter how much the blood-robed young man channeled his Emperor's chi to suppress it, it was useless. He looked at Chu Kuangren in horror. "What are you trying to do? Didn't you guys use Yan Honghua as bait to lure me here? I should be the one asking you what you're trying to do." Chu Kuangren said calmly. Not only was the blood-robed young man not surprised that he was here, but he even calmly took out his teleportation crystal and tried to leave. If Chu Kuangren had not used the realm sealing seal to seal the space, that person would have escaped. Obviously, the other party was prepared for Chu Kuangren's arrival. In fact, Chu Kuangren's arrival was their goal. "What am I going to do? I'm going to kill you, of course." Knowing that he had no chance of survival, the blood-robed young man decided to go all out with a ferocious smile on his face. "Unfortunately, you'll die before you can kill me," Chu Kuangren said as he gently lifted his finger. Surges of sword chi traveled through the void, and the heavenly honorables who were bound by the world lock were soon shredded into clouds of blood mist by the sword chi. This was especially true for the blood-robed young man. Countless surges of sword chi circled around his body and continuously sliced off his flesh. Not long after, the blood-robed young man's body was left with a bloody skeleton. What was more terrifying was that the blood tribe young man's head was still connected to his body. He was not completely dead yet, and his consciousness was still there. He could only watch as his flesh was continuously sliced off. "Is this game fun?" Chu Kuangren said in a calm tone. "You'll die a horrible death." The blood-robed young man's broken body trembled. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and unleashed a surge of energy chi, crushing the young man into pieces. Then he took out a pink bubble. The bubble continued to expand until a crack appeared. It was the secret realm. Chu Kuangren said to Yan Honghua and the others, "You guys go in first." "All right." Everyone could vaguely guess what was going on, so they entered the secret realm one after another. Once everyone had entered, Chu Kuangren kept the secret realm. Then, beams of light suddenly erupted from the entire 64th asteroid. Countless Taoist patterns circulated and covered the entire asteroid, forming a huge enchanted boundary that enveloped the entire planet. Chu Kuangren was not surprised by this. "I'd like to see how you're going to kill me." Chapter 749. "I'd like to see how you're going to kill me," Chu Kuangren said calmly. As soon as he said that, a winged blood tribe man in a white robe suddenly appeared not far away from him. That man exuded an incredibly powerful aura, and every move he made was filled with an oppressive aura that only a superior cultivator could possess. Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes at the newcomer. Taoist Master. The newcomer was a Taoist master. In the cosmic void around Firmament Star, powerful energy fluctuations erupted from more than 10 planets. The Blood Tribe's Taoist master has made his move. Do you really think we'll just sit back and watch? Let's go. Rays of light shot out one after another. They were heading towards the 64th asteroid. A few of the planets that the Taoist master was on did not move at all. On one of the planets, the heavenly yellow Taoist master was watering his plants and murmuring, "Chu Kuangren, can you survive this?" Chu Kuangren was facing a Taoist master. Of course he was aware of this. However, he did not plan to make a move. Chu Kuangren's existence was similar to the Luo River and the Heavenly Executioner. It made him feel uneasy as if his status had been affected. However, he could not attack directly because of the other Taoist masters and his reputation. However, he would not stop the Blood Tribe if they wanted to kill Chu Kuangren. Among the 24 Taoist masters, there were a few who were close to him and took orders from him. They knew what he was thinking, so they did not make a move. He did not care if the other Taoist masters would make a move. The Blood Tribe was fully prepared to kill Chu Kuangren this time. Even the Taoist masters would not be able to save Chu Kuangren easily. In the cosmos, the Taoist master turned into a ray of light and flew past. The Taoist master's speed was so fast that it only took him a few breaths to cross a few billion kilometers and arrive outside the 64th asteroid. However, there were countless Taoist runes circulating on the outer layer of the asteroid, forming a golden light barrier that prevented the Taoist master from entering. "Destroy it." The Dharma Taoist master snorted. However, just as the Taoist masters were about to attack, a dozen powerful energy fluctuations erupted in the cosmos. A blood-colored light beam that contained a vast amount of Emperor's Qi and Taoist runes charged towards the Dharma Taoist master. Even the Dharma Taoist master could not help but be pushed back a few hundred meters. He looked into the distance. More than a dozen figures appeared outside the golden barrier of light, and every one of them emanated energy waves that were not inferior to a Tao Lord's. 13 Blood Kings. The myriad arts Tao Master's eyes darkened. The newcomers were none other than the 13 Blood Kings of the Blood Race, as well as other hidden Tao Lords. There were 18 of them in total. 18 Tao Lords. It could be said that the Tao Lords of the Blood Race had turned out in full force. "Looks like you guys are really willing to go all out just to kill Chu Kuangren. I suppose most of the Blood Tribe Taoists have arrived." The Myriad Laws Tao Master said coldly. "If Chu Kuangren doesn't die, how can the Blood Tribe rest in peace?" King Ming said coldly. Chu Kuangren was too much of a threat to the Blood Tribe. It could even be said that if Chu Kuangren did not die and was given more time to grow, the Blood Tribe would never have the chance to invade Firmament Star again. The Firmament Star might even take over. How could the Blood Kings sit still? No, the entire Blood Tribe could not sit idly by and watch Chu Kuangren grow. Then let's start a full-scale war. The Myriad Laws Path Master snorted coldly. Without another word, he lifted his arm and streaks of mystical Taoist patterns spread out with him as the center, covering half of the universe. He then pointed his finger forward, and the countless Taoist patterns contracted to form a giant finger shadow. Its surging energy locked onto King Ming. King Ming snorted and unleashed a punch of his own. There was a loud explosion. The destructive energy produced by the Tao Lord spread out to a radius of 10 million kilometers. Asteroids exploded one after another, and a large amount of gales swept up in the surroundings. Fight. The other Tao Lords had also begun their battle. For a moment, the cold and silent universe seemed to be lit up. Rays of flames of different colors were unleashed. Inside the 64th asteroid, Chu Kuangren faced off against the Tao Lord all by himself. The Spirit of Omniscience Xiao AI activated. Analyzing target. Soon Chu Kuangren found out who the Tao Lord before him was. The Blood Tribe's White King by Juexin's father. I didn't expect you to personally come to seek revenge. Chu Kuangren chuckled. I can't believe you can still laugh. White King said indifferently. Why not? This is the first time I've fought against a Tao Lord. It's a memorable day. A long-lost battle intent surfaced in Chu Kuangren's eyes. The killing intent and battle intent that he had accumulated on the battlefield for months suddenly erupted. The entire planet shook violently because of this surge of energy. A strange look flashed across White King's eyes as he said, "Not a bad battle intent, but this is your first time fighting against a Tao Lord and it'll be your last too." At the end of his sentence, a surge of killing intent also erupted from White King's body. It was bone-chilling and it sent chills down one's spine. This battle was not only for the sake of avenging his son's death, but also for the future of the entire blood tribe. No matter which one it was, Chu Kuangren must not be left alive. "Let's fight." Chu Kuangren shouted and unsheathed the descendant's self-sword at his waist. White King had also taken out a giant axe. It was a dark red giant axe that was covered in dense Taoist patterns. When the sword and the axe collided, the terrifying impact immediately tore apart half of the 64th asteroid, almost tearing it in half. With a crack, a crisp sound rang in Chu Kuangren's ears. A crack appeared on the descendant's self-sword. Chu Kuangren's pupils shrunk. The descendant's self-sword had accompanied him in battles for many years, and it had continuously improved along with his cultivation. It had never been damaged before, but he did not expect it to be damaged in the first exchange with a Tao Lord. Chu Kuangren clenched his left hand into a fist, and the Starlight Immortal Physique's physical strength was pushed to its limit as he punched White King away. Then he kept the descendant's self-sword away. "Your weapon is too weak." White King snorted, and the dark red giant axe in his hand emanated a terrifying aura. It was a Taoist weapon. I'm already at a disadvantage in terms of weapons." Chu Kuangren chuckled. Then his gaze froze. He raised his hand to gather the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and a giant colorful rune appeared in the void. It was the Heavenly Nine Dragons transformation. The rune gathered the spiritual chi and turned it into a giant colorful dragon chi that rushed towards Chu Kuangren and merged into his body. That move instantly absorbed all the spiritual chi within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers from the 64th asteroid. With the help of the dragon chi, Chu Kuangren's aura continued to rise. 1000 Taoist Avatar. A colorful Dharma avatar formed behind Chu Kuangren. The 1,000-meter-tall Dharma avatar stood tall, and its majestic aura broke through the clouds. The entire 64th asteroid also began to collapse because of that power. Floods erupted and a large amount of underground magma gushed out. "Come, let's fight again." Chu Kuangren controlled the Dharma avatar and punched out. White King snorted coldly, and with his giant axe in hand, he swung it towards the Dharma avatar. Taoist patterns gathered within it, forming an axe ray. When the two forces collided, the entire asteroid could no longer withstand it. What followed was a shocking explosion. The asteroid exploded and shattered into countless pieces. However, the surrounding golden light barrier did not disappear, and it still isolated Chu Kuangren and White King within it. It was as if it was a dual arena built for the two of them. Chapter 750. In the universe. Inside the golden enchanted boundary. The battle between Chu Kuangren and White King had completely destroyed the entire number 64 asteroid. A large amount of chaotic energy waves mixed with flames surrounded the two and violently attacked the enchanted boundary. However, the Blood Tribe had put in a lot of effort to set up this enchanted boundary. It was not something that could be destroyed by an asteroid explosion. "Chu Kuangren, you're no match for the Taoist master." King White roared and swung the giant axe in his hand. A 1,000,000-meter-long axe ray covered in mysterious Taoist patterns shot out. Even with Chu Kuangren's 10,000 avatars and the power of his mini-realm, he was still blasted thousands of kilometers away and smashed into the golden enchanted boundary. Is this the power of a Taoist master? TSK, how powerful. Although Chu Kuangren was at a disadvantage, he did not feel discouraged at all. On the contrary, the battle intent in his eyes grew stronger. He had not felt pressure for a long time. Fight again. Reversal of heaven and earth. Chu Kuangren's Tao of invincibility and ultimate emperor essence were activated to the extreme, and the 10,000 avatars behind him blasted out an invincible technique. The power of the avatars combined with the power of the ultimate mystery and turned into a colorful light beam. Wherever it went, the sun and moon were overturned and the cosmos shattered. This person's combat strength is beyond my imagination. White King's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness. With his giant axe in hand, he let out a low growl and channeled his Taoist master's power. The Taoist patterns intertwined and turned into an axe ray that smashed the colorful light beam. The powerful impact once again blasted Chu Kuangren away. However, what surprised White King was that Chu Kuangren had already taken a few of his attacks head-on. Logically speaking, no matter how strong his physical body was, it should have been shattered by that attack. Yet he was unscathed. Not only that, but his battle intent was also getting stronger. What the hell is going on? White King was shocked. He felt that other than spatial techniques, 10,000 avatars and physical strength, Chu Kuangren still had a trump card that the Blood Tribe did not know about. The White King swung his giant axe. Numerous axe lights that were hundreds of millions of meters long pierced through the heavens and the earth, and every single strike carried a supreme force that was sufficient to shatter stars. Boom, boom, boom. Although Chu Kuangren's 10,000 Taoist avatar tried its best to resist the attack, it still could not withstand the Taoist master's mighty power. On the Dharma idol, the countless Tao patterns exploded under the axe light. The entire Dharma idol fell apart. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, was struck by the axe ray. Even his immortal stellar physique could not withstand it, and a huge wound was torn open on his body. Let's see if you can still die this time. King White snorted coldly. But then his pupils suddenly shrank. Chu Kuangren, who had been torn by the axe ray, stood in the air. The huge wound on his body was rapidly healing in a way that he could not understand, and in the blink of an eye, it was back to its original state. King White was dumbfounded. What was going on? It wasn't like he had never seen a self-healing ability before. However, the weaker a living being was, the more obvious its self-healing ability was. The higher one's cultivation was, the more difficult it would be for one's physical body to recover from injuries. Once an Empyrean was severely injured, it would require countless resources to recover. It was unknown how long it would take to recover on its own. Thousands or tens of thousands of years would be an understatement. For example, the heavenly executioners. After these Taoists were severely injured during the battle against the rebel gods, their injuries had not fully recovered even after 12 eras. Since Chu Kuangren was an Empyrean, it would take him some resources to recover after he was severely injured. How could he recover in the blink of an eye? That was impossible. King White's Emperor's thoughts surged as he sensed Chu Kuangren's aura. He realized that Chu Kuangren was not just recovering on the surface, but had fully recovered. Impossible. How can there be such a self-healing ability? Is it an immortal body? King White murmured in a daze. However, that moment of distraction gave Chu Kuangren an opportunity. He cast the spatial conveyor technique and arrived in front of his opponent. Then he activated the ultimate technique and punched his opponent's chest. However, King White was still a Taoist master, so he quickly recovered from his shock and blocked Chu Kuangren's attack. However, the huge force still sent him flying. The arm that blocked the punch felt numb, and his bones felt like they were broken. King White, who had never been injured for countless years, felt this heart-wrenching pain, and his face immediately contorted. I don't care if you have an immortal body or not. I'm going to kill you. He roared as he channeled his Taoist master's strength to its limit. He swung the giant axe in his hand. Chu Kuangren laughed. With the advantage of his immortal body, he did not care about defense and attacked with an extremely violent attack. Sometimes he would even trade injury for injury. Chu Kuangren was injured. However, he recovered in the next second. However, King White's injury was real. It was so painful that his face twitched. It was proven that even a Taoist master who had lived for countless years was no different from an ordinary person when he was injured. This was especially true when he hadn't been injured for countless years. When he was injured again, the intense and unfamiliar pain was enough to drive him crazy. After a series of crazy battles, some of the planetary remains inside the golden enchanted boundary had turned into cosmic dust. Chu Kuangren stood in the void. His white clothes were torn and stained with blood, but he was not injured at all. On the other hand, King White's hair was disheveled and there were a few bloody wounds on his body. Impossible. How can there be an immortal body in this world? You must have a weakness. I refuse to believe that I can't kill you. King White gritted his teeth and said. In the battle just now, he had tried to tear off Chu Kuangren's arm, shatter his internal organs and crush his heart. However, all of that was useless. Chu Kuangren would fully recover in the next instant. This matter was simply inconceivable to the extreme. Weakness. Of course I have a weakness. If you can turn me into countless particles in an instant, you might be able to kill me. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He used the word might. That was because even he did not know if he would die if he was turned into particles. He was now at the 5th level of the immortal body. Particle rebirth. In other words, he could resurrect even if he was turned into particles. However, this particle was very delicate. A millimeter was a particle, and a molecule was also a particle. How much would he have to beat him before he would die? Chu Kuangren did not know either. Nonsense. King White's expression darkened. Chu Kuangren's strength was comparable to a Taoist master's. Coupled with his strong physical body, it would be difficult to tear him into pieces. Not to mention turning him into particles. That was impossible. Furthermore, particle rebirth? Such a thing was unimaginable, and he did not want to believe it. Since I can't kill you, I'll just seal you up and capture you for research. King White snorted. He raised his hand and countless mysterious Taoist patterns began to circulate. These Taoist patterns intertwined and turned into a chain that emanated a powerful sealing fluctuation. Too bad you won't get the chance. Chu Kuangren said. Let's try. King White threw the Taoist pattern chain in his hand. However, at that moment, an extremely vast fluctuation suddenly erupted from Chu Kuangren's body. It was like a majestic heavenly might that shook the universe. Chapter 751. Outside the golden enchanted boundary. The Blood King was battling the Firmament Star Tao Lords. Horrifying energy ripples spread in all directions. Some of the asteroids could not withstand such horrifying energy and exploded one after another. Haha, Dharma Tao Lord, it's been almost a day since the enchanted boundary rose. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, do you think he can last a day against the Tao Lord? Wisdom King laughed with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Not bad. Chu Kuangren's strength was indeed unparalleled. However, he was still below the Tao Lord. Even if he had the strength to fight a Tao Lord, an entire day had passed, and he was facing one of the 13 Blood Kings. Wisdom King and the others did not think that Chu Kuangren would be a match for White King. Even the Dharma Tao Lord and the others could not help but feel their hearts sink. A day had passed. Could Chu Kuangren hold on? Humph, the enchanted boundary hasn't disappeared yet, which means that White King hasn't killed Chu Kuangren yet. What are you guys so proud of? The Dharma Tao Lord snorted, but he did not show any signs of worry. It was more important to stay calm at times like this. That's right. Do you think Chu Kuangren is that easy to kill? Forget a day, even if you have 10 more days, I don't think White King can kill Chu Kuangren. Who knows, Chu Kuangren might even be able to kill White King. One of the Firmament Star Tao Lords said loudly. He was the demonic bull Tao Lord of the demonic ox lineage. He had horns on his head and a nose ring on his nose. He looked like an honest man. Seeing that everyone was rooting for Chu Kuangren, he spoke up too. However, as soon as he said that, everyone looked at him strangely. Hey, that's too much. Killing a Tao Lord? How is that possible? Although the Dharma Tao Lord and the others were very confident in Chu Kuangren and felt that he would definitely be able to change the situation of the extraterrestrial battlefield in the future. However, he was still a heavenly honorable. The difference between a heavenly honorable and a Tao Lord was like heaven and earth. The demonic bull Tao Lord also felt that he had gone overboard. However, since he had said it, would he not retract it now? What are you looking at? Chu Kuangren is the most outstanding sky pride in the history of Firmament Star. It's not impossible for him to kill a Tao Lord who's one realm higher. The demonic bull Tao Lord raised his head and said, Killing a Tao Lord, how can you say something like that? King Ming was disdainful. Although he said that, he could not help but feel uneasy. Why would the White King fight with Chu Kuangren for so long? What was this guy doing? Cut the crap. It doesn't matter if Chu Kuangren is dead or alive today, we won't let this matter rest. The Dharma Taoist master said coldly. Just as the two sides were about to continue fighting, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the golden barrier, causing everyone to be startled. What is this energy fluctuation? Heavenly Tao. That's impossible. There aren't any living creatures on this planet. How could a heavenly way be born? What's going on? The Blood Kings were extremely astonished. Vaguely, King Ming felt even more uneasy. The Path Master of 10,000 Laws and the others seemed to have thought of something, and their eyes flickered. Inside the golden enchanted boundary, the Taoist chain that White King had flung out was repelled by the powerful heavenly Tao fluctuations that emanated from Chu Kuangren's body. He stared at Chu Kuangren and could not help but narrow his eyes in shock. Heavenly Axiom. Impossible, how can you be the Heavenly Axiom? The Heavenly Tao was something that could only be produced by a planet with life. It was an amalgamation of the will of the planet and countless living creatures. The Bloodgore star also had its own Heavenly Tao. Although it was different from the Firmament Star's Heavenly Tao, White King would never mistake it for something else. The fluctuations that emanated from Chu Kuangren's body were definitely the Heavenly Tao. He could not imagine it. How could a person emit heavenly Tao fluctuations? Don't tell me he's merged with the heavenly Tao like the blood god. No, that's impossible. The blood god has yet to awaken after merging with the heavenly Tao. He's not even a Tao Lord yet, so how can he merge with the heavenly Tao? White King was completely dumbfounded. He could not understand why Chu Kuangren was not even a Tao Lord, yet he had so many trump cards that even the Tao Lord found unbelievable. Chu Kuangren's immortal body was already scary enough. Now he had even summoned a surge of heavenly Tao energy. This is the first time I'm using this state against an enemy. Chu Kuangren's emotionless voice was so calm that it was terrifying. He was now in the converging Tao state. The firmament star's heavenly Tao energy was at his disposal. He felt that he had never felt so powerful before. Every move he made was filled with the majestic might of the heavens. Countless Taos would be suppressed in front of him. Junior realm open. Chu Kuangren said calmly. A junior realm that was merged with the heavenly Tao energy opened up and enveloped White King within, completely suppressing his Taos. D***, my Taos are being suppressed. White King's expression changed. He was a Tao Lord, so only a Tao Lord with a higher cultivation level could suppress his Taos. However, Chu Kuangren had done it as a heavenly honorable. That was because he was now the heavenly Tao. All the known Taos originated from the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao naturally suppressed all Taos. Fortunately, White King was not a firmament star Tao Lord. Otherwise, he would have been suppressed even more by the firmament star's heavenly Tao. Blood-devouring slash. White King roared and swung his giant axe at Chu Kuangren. He used all his strength in that attack. However, under the heavenly Tao's suppression, he could not unleash his full strength. Heavenly reversal. Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch. The ultimate technique that was merged with the heavenly Tao energy increased its power by more than a level, instantly shattering the axe ray. King White was sent flying by the force. D***, blood primal force burn. White King knew that he had to use his final trump card. His body was engulfed in blood-colored flames, and his aura surged crazily. Illusory 7 Emotions Song. At that moment, Chu Kuangren pointed a finger at him from afar, and a mysterious Taoist fluctuation that seemed to transcend the heavenly Tao spread out. That finger caused White King's emotions to fluctuate violently. Countless memories surged in his mind, some sad, some happy. He thought of his wife who had died many years ago. His wife was gentle and sweet. However, when he was young, he focused on his cultivation and neglected her. In the end, his wife died of depression. Meanwhile, he was in closed-door meditation. He did not even get to see her one last time. Then he thought of his son. To nurture his son, he threw him into the cruelest battlefield to train. He had 7 sons, but in the end only one was left. That person was Bai Juexin. But now Bai Juexin was also dead. At that thought, White King could not help but tear up. His original battle intent was also rapidly diminishing. What's going on? Why am I suddenly thinking about these things? However, White King suddenly regained his senses. He stared at Chu Kuangren, sensing the Taoist fluctuation that emanated from his body. He gulped, extremely shocked. Immortal technique. To be able to break free from the influence of the illusory 7 Emotions song so quickly, should I say that you're indeed a Taoist master? Chu Kuangren said. Impossible, this is impossible. How can Firmament Star have immortal techniques? There are only 2 immortal technique civilizations in the entire Purple Gold Galaxy. How can Firmament Star have immortal techniques? White King roared in disbelief. Chapter 752. Immortal Technique. A Taoist technique used by immortals. White King stared at Chu Kuangren in shock as his pupils trembled violently. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, fell silent when he heard that. Immortal technique civilization? The entire Purple Gold Galaxy? It was the first time he had heard of such a term. However, White King had already used all his strength to rush out of the golden enchanted boundary while Chu Kuangren was deep in thought. He was trying to escape. Even after burning his blood primordial energy, he no longer had any intention to fight. Immortal body? Heavenly Tao energy. Now, another immortal technique had appeared. White King swore that this was the first time he had encountered such a freak that could not be measured by common sense. He must have been out of his mind to think of dealing with Chu Kuangren back then. Now, all he wanted was to get as far away from Chu Kuangren as possible. He turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the enchanted boundary. Just as he was about to reach the enchanted boundary, he took out a jade token and threw it out. It was a token to enter and exit the enchanted boundary. "Heh, don't you think it's a little too late to leave now?" Chu Kuangren said indifferently. With a lift of his arm, the heavenly Tao energy flowed and combined with the Taoist Emperor's Qi to form a purple world lock. Outside the golden enchanted boundary, the appearance of the heavenly Tao energy stopped the Taoists from attacking. At that moment, a figure rushed out of the golden enchanted boundary. The Blood Kings were delighted to see that figure. "It's White King. Ah, White King has come out. It seems that he has successfully killed Chu Kuangren. As expected, that guy is no match for White King." The Blood Kings laughed out loud. On the other hand, the Firmament Star cultivators' expressions darkened. ***, could Chu Kuangren really be dead? The Dharma Taoist master was so furious that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. That was a power that could dominate the extraterrestrial battlefields in the future. Something's not right. White King's expression doesn't look right. Suddenly, King Farsighted noticed something. Although White King had come out, his aura was chaotic and his face was filled with panic. It was as if he was running for his life. White King was running for his life. "Save me!" White King yelled in panic. However, before King Farsighted and the others could do anything, several purple chains rushed out from the golden enchanted boundary. Tao patterns flowed on the chain and it was extremely mysterious. The purple chain caught up to King White at an extremely fast speed and tightly wrapped around him. Then, it pulled him into the golden barrier. Even with White King Tao Master's cultivation realm, he was unable to resist. "Save me! Save me!" King White roared at King Ming and the others. The Wisdom Monarch and the others immediately made their move as well. They wanted to attack the chains, but the myriad spells Tao Lord and the others clearly would not give them the chance. "You want to save him? No way. Haha, looks like the White King is going to give it away for free." The myriad arts Tao Lord and the demonic bull Tao Lord looked excited. Although they did not know what was happening inside the golden enchanted boundary, they could guess that Chu Kuangren had gained the upper hand when they saw that White King was at a disadvantage. Therefore they couldn't let anyone interfere. Damn it. King Ming watched as King White was dragged back into the barrier by the chains. He finally confirmed that the uneasiness in his heart was not an illusion. What had Chu Kuangren done? It had actually caused the Tao Lord to become so terrified that he had even disregarded his image and shouted for help. Inside the golden barrier, Chu Kuangren manipulated the world lock to drag King White back. "It's too late for you to run away." He gently raised his arm. Behind him, the 10,000 Taoist avatar that was infused with the heavenly Tao's energy soared into the air and slammed its palm towards his opponent. King White roared and channeled his full strength, but that palm still blasted him away and sent him crashing into the barrier. However, he could not break free from the world lock. Boom boom boom. The 10,000 Taoist avatar behind Chu Kuangren attacked one after another. The Taoist patterns on King White's Emperor's body continued to shatter and explode. Soon his body was on the verge of collapse. Originally, King White would not have been defeated so quickly with his strength. However, he had been scared silly by Chu Kuangren's endless trump cards, and his will to fight had been worn down by the seven emotions' illusory melody. That was why a Tao Lord could only passively take a beating. Not long after, King White's Emperor's body crumbled, and he was on the verge of death. Chu Kuangren grabbed the White King's axe and walked towards him. There was not the slightest hint of emotion in his indifferent eyes. An axe ray flashed past. The Blood Tribe's ruler had fallen. Outside the golden enchanted boundary, the Blood Kings and the Firmament Star Tao Lords were engaged in a fierce battle. Suddenly, the golden enchanted boundary was hit by an extremely powerful force. Then, countless cracks began to appear on the entire golden enchanted boundary. Amidst the explosion, the entire enchanted boundary shattered into countless light spots. A white figure slowly walked out. That person was tall and slender. His clothes were as white as snow, and his jet-black hair fluttered in the wind. He was extremely handsome, and every move he made carried an unfathomable aura. Chu Kuangren. Look, he's carrying King White. Chu Kuangren stepped through the air and approached them. In his hand was a head. It was King White. Chu Kuangren had killed King White. Although the Blood Kings had expected it, they could not help but be shocked when they saw it for themselves. Chu Kuangren had really killed a Tao Lord. Haha. I told you guys that Brother Chu could kill a Tao Lord, but you guys didn't believe me. Now you've seen it for yourself. The Bull Demon Tao Lord laughed. Although he was just bragging earlier, now no one could refute him. The truth was right in front of them. Chu Kuangren came before the Blood Kings, raised his hand, and threw the head in his hand at them before unleashing a surge of energy chi. In front of the Blood Kings he crushed King White's head into dust. "This one's too weak. Is there anyone stronger among you guys?" Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The Blood Kings stared at him in shock and confusion. What was wrong with this person? Why was there a fluctuation of the heavenly Tao? Also, did he really fight King White? Why was he not injured at all? Not even his clothes were damaged. They were so clean that not a speck of dust could be seen. What did that mean? It meant that King White did not even have the strength to scratch the corner of his clothes. Countless thoughts flashed through the Wisdom King and the others' minds. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that Chu Kuangren was too terrifying. How could he kill a Tao Lord so easily? Retreat. The Wisdom King growled before he led the others away. Chu Kuangren did not give chase. That was because he had expended a lot of energy. Now that a half-step Tao Lord had appeared, it would be difficult for him to fight. Not to mention killing a group of Tao Lords. "Looks like I managed to fool them," Chu Kuangren murmured. That was right. His current stance was all an act. The heavenly Tao's aura was real, but it was just a facade. The clean white robe he was wearing was something he changed into when he exited the enchanted boundary. As for his lack of injuries, how could an immortal body be injured? That was the most important point. The Blood Kings only realized how terrifying he was because he was not injured at all. He was able to kill King White without a scratch. However, if they thought about it carefully, they would realize that if he was really that powerful, he would not have fought King White for an entire day. However, they were too shocked by King White's death that they did not think too much about it. No matter what, it was true that Chu Kuangren had killed a Tao Lord. That alone was enough to make them fearful. Chapter 753. Brother Chu. You're just too amazing. Bull Demon walked up to Chu Kuangren and said. The other Taoists looked at Chu Kuangren in shock as well. It was their first time hearing of a heavenly honorable killing a Taoist master. The talent and strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed was just too shocking. Let's leave first. On a certain planet, a powerful surge of energy suddenly erupted, and the entire planet was instantly destroyed as if a storm had ravaged all the flora and fauna on the planet. Countless leaves and rocks danced in the air. The heavenly yellow Taoist master had a ferocious look on his face. D*Amenet? D*Amenet? How did Chu Kuangren kill a Taoist master? He could not believe it. This made him even more eager to kill Chu Kuangren. Except for the heavenly yellow Taoist master. When the Blood Kings returned to the Blood Tribe's headquarters, they finally regained their senses. No, Chu Kuangren's strength is not as strong as we thought. Otherwise, how could he have fought against the White King for so long? Then why isn't there a single wound on his body? It might be some kind of healing treasure. The Blood King's expressions turned grim. They had realized that they had been tricked by Chu Kuangren. However, even if Chu Kuangren did not trick them, they would still have no choice but to retreat. Besides Chu Kuangren, the Dharma Taoist master and the others were still eyeing them. The White King is dead. What should we do now? One of the Blood Kings said in a low voice. Chu Kuangren must be eliminated. If we don't, we won't be able to fight this war, and the future of the Blood Tribe will be threatened by him. The Wisdom King had a determined look in his eyes. I plan to activate the Blood Abyss to destroy Firmament Star's defenses and Chu Kuangren. The Blood King's expressions changed when they heard that. The Blood Abyss. Activating the Blood Abyss will consume at least half of the Deep Blood planet's current resources. If we don't succeed, the Blood Origin planet won't be able to launch another large-scale battle for a year. Are we really going to do this? If we don't do this, are we just going to sit back and watch Chu Kuangren continue to grow? Besides, activating the Blood Abyss was originally part of our plan. We're just moving it forward by a few years. Well, let's vote. The remaining 12 Blood Kings held a vote on whether or not to open the Blood Abyss. The result was that all 12 votes were in favor. Everyone agreed to open the Blood Abyss. After losing a Tao Lord, the Blood Kings had witnessed Chu Kuangren's potential. If he was left alive and given some time to grow, he would definitely become the most terrifying enemy the Blood Tribe had ever faced. He must kill it in time. Even if he had to pay a huge price to open the Blood Abyss, he would not hesitate. Then let's go back and prepare. In Firmament Star, within Fortress number 17. Chu Kuangren had brought Yen Honghua and the others back safely. Thank you, fellow cultivator Chu. Empyrean Ghost Blade bowed solemnly. You're welcome. I'm ashamed to say this. You were recommended by a benefactor, so I should have been the host. I never expected to cause trouble for you again and again, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade said shamefully. Chu Kuangren waved his hand and said, "General, we're all fighting for Firmament Star. As long as it's within my capabilities, it's only right for me to help. You don't have to be so polite." Haha, the Firmament Star is blessed to have Brother Chu. They chatted for a while. However, Empyrean Ghost Blade soon realized that something was not right. Beside him, Yin Honghua had been sitting quietly. She did not say a word, but she occasionally stared at the ground as if she was lost in thought. The Empyrean Ghost Blade looked at the ground. There was nothing much to see. Had she been scared silly? "War, it's all right now." Empyrean Ghost Blade comforted her. Hearing his voice, Yin Honghua came back to her senses and said, "Grandfather, he's dead." "Oh, the heavenly venerate who killed my parents is dead," Yin Honghua said. "What happened?" Empyrean Ghost Blade's expression changed. Yin Honghua told her grandfather what had happened. For the past few decades, she had been living for revenge and working hard to become stronger. However, that person was now dead. However, she was not the one who killed him. Although it was a pity she had gotten her revenge. That made her feel a little hollow inside. It was as if her motivation to live had suddenly disappeared. "War, he's dead. From now on, you don't have to live such a tiring life anymore." Empyrean Ghost Blade comforted her. "No, I may have avenged my parents, but the Blood Tribe has yet to be destroyed, and the Firmament Crisis has yet to be resolved. I can't slack off." Yin Honghua seemed to have found a new goal, and her gaze gradually became determined. Empyrean Ghost Blade sighed helplessly. He knew that it was not an easy task to make Yin Honghua relax. Her way of living was different from others. Perhaps that was the reason why she could improve so quickly. Chu Kuangren looked at Yin Honghua with admiration. He quite admired her. "General, I'll take my leave then," Chu Kuangren said. "All right, since the war is still ongoing, I won't keep you any longer." After leaving Fort Number 17, Chu Kuangren returned to Fort Number 31 and collected a batch of resources from Luo Shui. The battle with the Tao Lord had consumed too much of his energy, so it would take him 5 to 6 days to recover to his peak state. If it were someone else, they might not even be able to recover in a year and a half. 2 days later, Chu Kuangren had absorbed a batch of spirit marrow elixirs and was almost fully recovered. He began to summarize his gains from the battle. Aside from killing White King, the most important thing he got was that great axe. It was a Tao weapon. Moreover, it was a Tao weapon that was more advanced than the realm-sealing seal. "It's a pity that my descendant self-sword is gone." Chu Kuangren took out the descendant self-sword and stroked the crack on it with his fingertip. A hint of heartache appeared in his eyes. Since the beginning of his journey, the descendant self-sword had accompanied him all the way to where he was today. It was his most important combat partner. To him, no other Tao weapon could compare to his descendant self-sword. No, forget about Tao weapons. He would not trade it even for an immortal weapon. Yet now it had a crack on it from White King's attack. At that thought, he could not wait to kill White King a dozen more times. No matter how he looked at that axe, he just could not stand it. Stupid axe. He lifted the axe with one foot and kicked it away. "Are you throwing a tantrum?" Luo Shui happened to be walking towards him and dodged the flying axe. She looked at Chu Kuangren with a hint of surprise in her eyes. She had never seen him throw a tantrum before. All this while, Chu Kuangren had always given off a calm and safe vibe on the battlefield. She had never seen him lose control of his emotions. More or less. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and said calmly. He kept the descendant self-sword. Luo Shui's eyes were sharp and he noticed the cracks on the Kuan Wu sword. "Could it be that you're troubled over this sword?" "Yes. I remember one of the 24 Taoist masters, the Scarlet Sun Taoist master, is an expert in equipment refinement. Perhaps he can help you," Luo Shui said. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he heard that. Scarlet Sun Taoist master. I wonder where he is. I'll ask around for you. Then Luo Shui contacted the Dharma Taoist master. Chapter 754. The Dharma Sect Master said that the Crimson Sun Sect Master is currently at asteroid number 103. He will send the star map over later. Luo Shui contacted the Dharma Sect Master. Not long after, the communication compass at Luo Shui's waist vibrated. A light pattern appeared and a star map appeared. After Chu Kuangren took the star map, he immediately set off for the destination. Asteroid number 103. Because the Crimson Sun Sect Master lived here, this asteroid was also known as the Crimson Sun Asteroid. It was a second-class planet, so it was not a big one. It was only about 1,000th of the firmament star's size. Crimson Sun Asteroid. The Crimson Sun Sect Master sensed Chu Kuangren's arrival immediately. Without delay he came out to greet him. "Brother Chu, your presence brings light to my humble dwelling." "Greetings, Brother Crimson Sunday," Chu Kuangren bowed slightly. The Crimson Sun sect master had the Crimson Sun Taoist physique. He was the first person to possess such a physique since the beginning of the Firmament Star's cultivation civilization. Not only him but the other sect masters were also the same. For example, the Black-Yellow sect master and the Chaos sect master were the first heavenly golden imperial physiques and the first chaos physiques in the Firmament Star. The Crimson Sun sect master did not find it strange that Chu Kuangren addressed him as a peer. Since Chu Kuangren could kill a sect master, it was normal for him to address him as a peer. If Chu Kuangren were to address him as a senior, he would not be able to accept it. "Brother Chu, I've learned the reason why you're here from the Dharma sect master. Can you let me take a look at your sword?" "Of course." Chu Kuangren took out the Descendant Self Sword. The Crimson Sun sect master took the Descendant Self Sword and examined it carefully. This sword contains a sword soul, and this sword soul seems to have been blessed by fate. It's much stronger than ordinary sword souls. Not bad, but the material is a little inferior. The Descendant Self Sword was originally just an ordinary sage weapon. It only had its current achievements under Chu Kuangren's nurturing. The sword soul had also been nourished by the purple haze when he became a sage, so its soul power was much stronger than ordinary sword souls. However, this could not cover the shortcomings of its material. "Brother Crimson Sun, can you repair this sword?" "Of course." Chu Kuangren's reply and his furrowed brows relaxed. "By the way, I heard that fellow Taoist Chu possesses a secret realm?" "Yes." It's like this. I once obtained a refining technique by chance. It can integrate a secret realm into a weapon, greatly increasing the weapon's power. I wonder if you're interested in giving it a try?" "I see," Chu Kuangren pondered for a moment. "If you don't mind my asking, Brother Qiyang, what are your chances of successfully merging the secret realm into your sword?" "That's hard to say. It depends on the material used to forge the artifact. The better the material used to forge the artifact, the higher the success rate of merging it into the secret world." Chu Kuangren took out a dark red giant axe. "I got this from the White King. Is this good enough as a material?" "Tisk tsk. This is a Tao artifact." The Scarlet Sun sect leader carefully observed the giant axe and then said in surprise, "This giant axe actually contains primordial purple gold?" "Pure purple gold?" "Yes, that's the highest grade of metal known in this galaxy. It can even be compared to immortal gold. It's just that this kind of metal is very rare. This is the first time I've seen it. If I hadn't studied it in the ancient books, I might not have recognized it." The Scarlet Sun sect leader was amazed. To an armament refiner, a good piece of casting material was too hard to come by, not to mention a treasure like the polar purple gold. "With this primordial purple gold, I'm at least 70% confident that I can merge the secret realm into it and forge a peerless divine weapon for you, Brother Chu. What if it fails?" Chu Kuangren hesitated for a moment before asking. The Descendant Self Sword was very important to him, so he could not risk it. Brother Chu, don't worry. Even if it fails, only the material will be damaged. It won't affect the sword soul in any way." Only then did Chu Kuangren feel relieved. He took out the pink secret realm. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Qiyang. This is a rare challenge for me as well. Why don't I say thank you for giving me this opportunity, Brother Chu?" Brother Qiyang said with a smile. Secret realm and primordial purple gold. The Scarlet Sun sect leader had a feeling that this would be the most powerful weapon he had ever forged in his life. In the following days, the Blood Tribe stopped their attacks. Chu Kuangren stayed on the Scarlet Sun planet for the time being. A few days later, the Dharma sect leader suddenly came to visit. "Brother Chu, how's the weapon forging coming along?" "Yes, Brother Qiyang is still working on it. I think it'll take some time." Chu Kuangren chuckled. Then, the Dharma sect leader asked about what happened on the 64th asteroid that day. "Brother Chu, how did you kill the White King?" A heavenly honorable had crossed an entire realm to kill a Taoist master. That was unimaginable to the Dharma sect leader. Chu Kuangren concealed some information, such as his immortal body, and briefly explained the battle that day. "By the way, have you heard of the Immortal Technique Civilization and the Violet Gold Galaxy?" Chu Kuangren asked. The Dharma sect leader's expression gradually turned solemn. "I have some understanding of it. As a Taoist master, the Dharma sect leader naturally knew about the galaxy where the firmament star was located. The Violet Gold Galaxy is the name of the galaxy we're currently in. As for the Immortal Technique Civilization, as the name suggests, It's a cultivation civilization that possesses immortal techniques. It's the strongest cultivation civilization in the Violet Gold Galaxy. Not even the Blood Tribe can compare to it. However, the immortal technique civilization is too far away from us. Let's focus on dealing with the Blood Tribe for now. The Blood Tribe was the only extraterritorial cultivation civilization that the Firmament Star had come into contact with. The Blood Source Star was at least 20 light-years away from the Firmament Star, not to mention the immortal technique civilization that was even further away. Has there ever been an immortal technique in the Firmament Star? Chu Kuangren asked curiously. Legend has it that there once was. A long time ago, when the Firmament Star was the origin of cultivation, an immortal visited the Firmament Star and left behind an immortal technique. However, for countless years, no one was able to understand the mysteries of the immortal technique. Later on, a human almighty divided the immortal technique into 9 types of emperor techniques and recorded them in a scroll. Where is that immortal technique now? With the passage of time, the stone wall that recorded the immortal technique has long disappeared into history. The Dharma sect leader shook his head and lamented. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel a little disappointed. He could basically confirm that the immortal technique that the Dharma sect leader was talking about was the Phantom 7 Emotions song. If he could see the stone wall with his own eyes, perhaps it would help him perfect the Phantom 7 Emotions song. Brother Chiang is still refining. Why don't you have a discussion with me, Brother Chu? The Dharma sect leader suddenly suggested. Upon hearing this, Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. All right. The two sat down and discussed. The Dharma sect leader was the first person in the Firmament Star to achieve the transcendent coalescence. He knew so many Taoist techniques that it was dazzling. Chu Kuangren also had the transcendent coalescence and had mastered countless Taoist techniques. It was very beneficial to discuss with him. The two's discussion lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The entire Chiang planet was shrouded in mysterious Taoist patterns. From afar, it looked like a giant light sphere with constantly changing runes. Chapter 755. I'm completely convinced. After the sparring session, the Dharma Taoist master looked at Chu Kuangren and exclaimed in admiration. Discussing the Tao with fellow Taoist myriad arts has greatly benefited me. Brother Chu, your understanding of the Tao is not much weaker than the Taoist masters, and you're only 30 years old this year. This is truly amazing. Given time, you'll definitely become the Taoist master, the heavenly Taoist master, or even cross the threshold and become an unprecedented immortal in the Firmament Star. There were 3 stages of Tao Lord: Minor Tao Lord, Great Tao Lord, and Heavenly Tao Lord. Above the master of the heavenly law was the deity. The myriad laws Tao Lord was only a mid-stage Minor Tao Lord, and he was still 2 stages away from becoming a Great Tao Lord, let alone becoming an immortal that was above the Great Tao Lords and Heavenly Tao Lords. However, from his point of view, Chu Kuangren could very well become an immortal. Over the years, I've obtained some records from the outer realms. I also know some things about immortals. Immortals are the pillars of a civilization. Only a civilization with immortals has the right to establish itself in this vast universe. A civilization without immortals is incomparably insignificant in this universe. If they encounter some powerful civilizations, they will not be able to put up any resistance and will end up as colonies or slaves to other civilizations. Fellow cultivator Chu, the blood race is not your target. Because they don't have immortals. Your true goal is to become an immortal. Once you become an immortal, the blood tribe will be nothing more than a piece of cake. Only when you become an immortal will the Firmament Star have a brighter future because of you. Only then will it be able to establish itself in the universe. The Dharma Taoist master stared at Chu Kuangren with a fiery gaze. To him, Chu Kuangren was no longer just a talented sky pride cultivator, but the future of the Firmament civilization. Chu Kuangren could feel his opponent's burning gaze. That gaze gave him goosebumps even more than some of the female cultivators whose eyes lit up when they saw him. He couldn't help but shiver. He gulped. Fellow Taoist myriad arts, your words really put a lot of pressure on me. Ha, I believe in fellow Taoist Chu. The Tao Lord of 10,000 laws calmed his emotions. He also knew that becoming an immortal was not something that could be rushed. No matter how talented Chu Kuangren was, it was impossible for him to become an immortal just because he wanted to. There were not many immortals in the vast universe. Blood Origin Star. The location of the vampire civilization. Today the remaining 12 Blood Kings had gathered. They came to the holy land of the Blood Origin planet, a towering mountain that was as red as blood, so high that it pierced through the clouds. The Blood God Mountain. There were countless mysterious runes carved on the mountain peak, flowing with waves of fluctuations that made all vampires want to submit. "Get ready to begin," King Ming said. The other Blood Kings exchanged looks and took a deep breath. They took out large batches of blood-colored crystals and distributed them around the blood god. These were all blood origin crystals. Moreover, it was several years' worth of production on the blood origin planet. After taking out the blood origin crystals, the Blood Kings stood in different directions. Then they chanted a strange incantation, emanating a strange fluctuation. The blood god mountain began to tremble. The runes on the mountain moved. The energy contained within the countless blood origin crystals was completely absorbed by the blood god mountain. A resplendent blood-red pillar of light shot into the sky. The pillar of light soared into the sky and broke through the void. Terrifying energy fluctuations spread out, like a stone falling into a calm lake, setting off circles of ripples in the universe. With the blood origin planet as the center, billions of miles of the void were affected. The blood abyss has been activated. Now let us join forces and project it into the sky of Firmament Star, King Ming said. The Blood Kings nodded. However, after a while the Blood Kings frowned. There's a huge formation protecting Firmament Star. This formation blocks the blood abyss's senses, so we can't project it into the formation, one of the Blood Kings said. The other Blood Kings were shocked too. They knew that Firmament Star was protected by a huge formation, but they did not expect it to be strong enough to block the blood abyss's energy. If we can't project it into the formation, we'll just leave it outside. Let's destroy the 81 strongholds first, one of the Blood Kings said. I guess that's the only way. In Crimson Yang Planet, Chu Kuangren and the Dharma Taoist master had just finished their discussion. They were sipping tea when both of them frowned at the same time and looked in the direction of Firmament Star. That strange fluctuation just now. It seems like the Firmament Star's formation was hit by something. What's going on? The Dharma Taoist master's expression was extremely solemn. Both of them released their emperor's thoughts and began to inspect the formation. However, they did not find anything strange. Besides the two of them, the other Taoist masters had also sensed the strange fluctuation and released their emperor's thoughts to inspect their surroundings. The hateful parting heaven formation was the strongest line of defense to protect Firmament Star. They could not afford to lose it, or else the consequences would be unimaginable. Buzz buzz buzz. Just as the Taoist masters were inspecting their surroundings, suddenly an unprecedented violent fluctuation appeared in the cosmic void outside the hateful parting heaven, causing the Taoist masters' expressions to change. This fluctuation, what's going on? Look, what's that? The Taoist master's emperor's thoughts converged. A blood-red crack suddenly appeared in the void. It stretched for tens of thousands of miles, and it emitted a strange and ominous fluctuation like an abyss. The Taoist masters tried to probe it with their emperor's thoughts, but the moment they got close, their emperor's thoughts would be shattered by the strange fluctuation. Just as everyone was in shock, the blood-red crack suddenly spewed out a huge amount of blood-red mist towards one of the strongholds. The general who was guarding that stronghold looked extremely solemn as he led a group of emperors to channel their emperor's chi to resist. All sorts of energy attacks were launched into the blood-red mist. However, it was of no use. Following that, some of the soldiers were enveloped by the blood-red mist, and it did not take long for the mist to invade their bodies. Their bodies expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then they screamed in agony as their bodies exploded. This is bad. Quick retreat. Enter the stronghold and activate the defensive formation, the general who was guarding the stronghold roared. Not long after, hundreds of millions of cultivators retreated to the defensive formation. However, the blood-red mist continued to surge and shroud the stronghold. The mist was like maggots attached to the bones, constantly eroding the stronghold's defensive formation. It was not just one stronghold. The blood-red mist seemed to be boundless as it spewed out from the blood-red abyss-like crack in the void, gradually covering all 81 strongholds. It was even surging towards the Firmament Star. The Taoist masters could not sit still anymore. There's blood origin energy in this blood mist. This is definitely the doing of the blood tribe. How did they do it? All 81 strongholds are shrouded in the blood mist. Not only that, but the blood mist is also spreading towards the Firmament Star. The Firmament Star is protected by the resentful parting formation, so we won't have to worry about the blood mist for now. However, we have to think of a way to solve this problem. All Taoist masters gather. Under the threat of the blood abyss, the 24 Taoist masters gathered once again to discuss a solution. However, something even more troublesome happened at this time. The frontline troops of the Blood Tribe, who had been lying low for a few months, took this opportunity to launch a large-scale attack. However, they were not affected by the blood mist. All of a sudden, the strongholds were plunged into a bitter battle. Chapter 756. Kill? Haha, with the Blood Abyss's blessing, we're now the strongest we've ever been. This time we must break through the firmament. That's right, kill? The Blood Tribe's invasion had plunged the 81 fortresses into a bitter battle. The blood mist from the Blood Abyss could suppress the strength of Firmament Star's emperors. Cultivators below the Emperor realm could not even survive in the blood mist, let alone fight against the Blood Tribe. Most of the fortresses could only retreat into their own fortresses and rely on the fortresses' formations to hold on. However, they would not be able to hold on for long. The blood mist coverage area was still expanding. Not only did it cover the 81 fortresses, but it also gradually fell on the resentful parting formation. Firmament Star. The originally blue and white sky was gradually dyed red. Countless cultivators looked up at the sky and fell into unprecedented shock. What's going on? Why did the sky turn red? What's going on? What a strange aura. The emperors who stayed behind to guard Firmament Star looked at the sky with trembling eyes. Vaguely they could guess what was going on. This aura belongs to the Blood Tribe. What did the Blood Tribe do this time? It's been so many years since they last caused such a commotion. What's going on this time? Is the Firmament Star going to face an unprecedented calamity? The Emperor's gazes were solemn and uneasy. Countless living beings were panicking and did not know what to do. Extraterrestrial. 24 Tao Lords had gathered. Relying on their powerful cultivators, they forced their way to the Blood Abyss. They looked at the Blood Abyss before them with extremely solemn eyes. Let's block this Blood Abyss first. Let's try using the Lesser World. The Dharma Tao Lord took a step forward. He released his Lesser World, which covered a radius of 10 million miles. The Lesser World covered the Blood Abyss, which temporarily stopped the blood mist from surging out. However, it did not take long before the blood mist began to corrode the Dharma Tao Lord's Lesser World, and the entire Lesser World began to collapse. This won't do. I can't seal this blood mist by myself, the Dharma Tao Lord said with a solemn expression. Together. The Tao Lords were about to attack. However, at that moment, laughter came from the Blood Abyss. Tao Lords of Firmament Star, your end has come. The Wisdom Sovereign, the Charm Sovereign, and the 12 Blood Kings arrived together. They looked at the myriad arts Tao Lords with playful smiles on their faces. In the fortress, the generals had also sensed the aura of the Path Master and the Blood King. Their faces were extremely grim. Path Master, even the Blood King has taken action. Could it be that this blood firmament battle will decide the future of the two civilizations? I didn't expect things to develop to this point. Heavens, what kind of outcome will we be heading towards? 12 Blood Kings and 24 Tao Masters. Seems like the advantage is on our side. We'll definitely win this battle. There were some cultivators who held an optimistic attitude. However, some heavenly venerables weren't so optimistic. They looked at the surging blood mist around them with worried expressions. I'm afraid it's not that simple. In front of the Blood Abyss, the Path Master and the Blood King were facing off. 12 Blood Kings against 24 Tao Lords. If you guys really dared to come. 12 Blood Kings, aren't you afraid that we'll wipe you all out in one fell swoop? Myriad Law's Tao Lord coldly snorted. Can you do it with your current strength? The Wisdom Sovereign chuckled. He grabbed a clump of blood mist and sucked it into his body. A joyful expression appeared on his face. This Blood Abyss can release blood origin chi on a large scale. The Blood Tribe is like a tiger that has grown wings in an environment like this. However, it's like poison to you guys. Especially since you're so close to the Blood Abyss. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you guys to even open a lesser world. 24 Tao Lords, but their combat strength is still slightly inferior to us 12 Blood Kings. The 24 Tao Lords didn't refute his words. This was because the closer they got to the blood mist, the more they could feel the suppressive force. It was difficult for them to fully unleash their combat strength. They had the advantage in numbers, but their combat strength was inferior. This battle would be very difficult for them. Opening this blood abyss must have cost the Blood Origin planet a lot, right? How long can this blood abyss last? Myriad Law's Tao Lord said indifferently. They knew that the Blood Tribe must have paid a huge price to open the blood abyss. If they could open it at will, they would have done so long ago instead of waiting until today. The war between the two civilizations would not have lasted for so long. It's true that we've paid a huge price, but as long as we can kill all of you, Firmament Star will no longer have the power to resist us. As long as we can take down Firmament Star, any price is worth it. Let's see what you've got then. A white bead appeared above the Myriad Law's Daolord's head. The bead glowed with Daoist patterns. It was his Daoist weapon. The other Daolords took out their Daoist weapons as well. Terrifying energy ripples spread in all directions. The universe was shaken. The Wisdom Sovereign glanced at the crowd and said, "Why isn't Chu Kuangren here? What's wrong? Is he afraid?" The Heavenly Yellow Daolord glanced at the Myriad Law's Daolord and said, "This battle is very important. Why isn't Chu Kuangren here?" The other Daolords were curious too. Chu Kuangren could kill a Daolord, which meant that he was on the same level as them. So why wasn't he here for the Daolord's battle? Could it be that he was afraid? "Brother Chu has gone to prepare something," the Myriad Law's Daolord said. It doesn't matter what he's prepared. Once the Blood Abyss is activated, there's no stopping it. You're all doomed. The Wisdom Sovereign said. "Let's fight." The Myriad Law's Daolord was the first to attack. The white bead above his head radiated with a dazzling brilliance. A ray of white light shot out and countless Daoist patterns intertwined within it. The Wisdom Sovereign unleashed a punch. Boom. The Daolord's aura collided, and the Myriad Law's Daolord was forced back. ***, this Blood Abyss's suppression is really troublesome. The Myriad Law's Daolord's expression turned grim. "Brother Myriad, I'll help you." The demonic bull Daolord let out an angry roar, and a gigantic black bull shadow appeared behind him. Its roar shook the celestial bodies. The Wisdom Sovereign shattered the demonic bull Daolord's shadow and took out a pitch-black longsword. Countless vengeful spirits wailed on the blade. "Today all the Daolords of Firmament Star shall fall. From now on, Firmament Star shall be the colony of the Blood Source planet, and the cultivators of Firmament Star shall be the slaves of the Blood Tribe." The Wisdom Sovereign laughed out loud. "Dream on. You want to destroy Firmament Star? Impossible." The 24 Daolords and the 12 Blood Kings clashed. Vast energy waves swept across the area. The fortress in the distance trembled as it sensed the terrifying energy waves. Boom. The demonic bull Daolord was sent flying by the Wisdom Sovereign's slash. He spat out a mouthful of blood. ***, this Blood Abyss's suppression is too strong. The demonic bull Daolord glanced at the other Daolords. The Daolords were suppressed by the Blood Abyss, and they could not unleash their full strength. Under the ferocious attacks of the 12 Blood Kings, they were injured one after another. ***, are we really going to lose after holding on for so long? The demonic bull Daolord said indignantly. They had held on for 12 eras. Were they going to lose to the Blood Abyss today? Chapter 757. Hold on. Just then a voice rang out. Several powerful energy waves erupted from the depths of the universe, and several streams of light arrived before the Blood Abyss in the blink of an eye. Every single one of these people was emitting powerful energy ripples. Their leader was a green-clothed man. Heavenly Executioner. The Dharma Daolord and the others were overjoyed. These people were the other 8 Heavenly Executioners, excluding the 7 Executioners. Among these 8 people there was an old man with a walking stick, a swordsman with a long sword, and a valiant woman with a long saber. 8 Heavenly Executioners, 8 different auras. Your injuries. The arrival of the 8 Heavenly Executioners delighted the Daolord. However, when he thought of their injuries, the Dharma Daolord could not help but worry. Could they really fight the Daolord while injured? Firmament Star is about to be destroyed. Who cares about injuries? A burly man said. His muscles were like molten iron, extremely shocking. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he exuded a majestic battle intent. This person was the 3rd Heavenly Executioner, the 3rd Executioner. He was the most hot-tempered and battle-hungry, and he looked at the Blood Kings opposite him with an eager look in his eyes. "This is my first time fighting the Blood Tribe Daolord. Don't disappoint me." Far-sighted King looked at the Heavenly Executioner who suddenly appeared. "I didn't expect Firmament Star to have hidden forces. However, judging from their auras, they're all injured. Nothing to worry about. Let's give it a try." The 3rd Executioner attacked first. With a punch, the Daoist markings turned into a majestic fist force. One of the Blood Kings snorted and also punched. The 2 fists collided with each other. The 3rd Executioner was pushed back hundreds of feet. That's strong enough. Again. With the addition of the Heavenly Executioners, Firmament Star's combat power increased significantly, and they could barely withstand the attacks of the 12 Blood Kings. However, the situation was still not optimistic. The Dharma Tao Lord noticed that the heavenly executioners' attacks were no longer as fierce as before. He knew that the heavenly executioners must have used some method to suppress their injuries, which was why they could fight the Tao Lord. However, it was still too much, and with the suppression of the blood abyss, they would not be able to maintain this state for long. Furthermore, the 81 forts would not be able to withstand the Blood Tribe army's attack for long. Boom! At this time, a shocking explosion came from afar. However, one of the great arrays in one of the 81 fortresses was breached by the Blood Clan, and countless cultivators were instantly exposed to a mist of blood. Kill. We must destroy all 81 strongholds this time. The Bloodlings charged into the group of cultivators. Not long after, the sound of slaughter resounded throughout the world. A large number of Heavenly Dome Realm cultivators were either invaded by the blood mist and exploded, or they were slaughtered by the Blood Tribe cultivators. The Firmament Star's Tao Lords were so furious that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. "You're definitely going to lose," King Ming sneered. After that, a terrifying suction force erupted from his body, and he sucked the blood mist into his body like a whale sucking in water. And his aura was actually rising steadily. This was the divine ability of the Blood Tribe, the power of blood darkness. The other Blood Kings did the same and raised their combat strength. These fellows can actually use the blood darkness power to absorb the surrounding blood mist to increase their combat strength. The expressions of the Myriad Arts Sect Master and the others were extremely gloomy. Buzz 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 buzz. Just as Wisdom King and the others were about to fight again, far away a series of buzzing sounds suddenly came. What's that sound? It sounds like a sword hum. Everyone looked into the distance. From the 81 strongholds, countless long swords suddenly rose into the air and traveled across the universe. 100 million, 200 million, there were so many of them that they were uncountable. The countless long swords crisscrossed and let out a deafening rumble in the void. They then turned into 81 torrents that charged towards the blood abyss. The sword chi swept across hundreds of millions of miles, shocking the stars in the universe. At the forefront of the 81 torrents of swords was a white-robed young man with fluttering black hair. The young man's expression was cold, and there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. Hundreds of millions of long swords followed closely behind him, and the sword chi sliced through the blood mist for him. Blood Kings, today I bring the swords of the 81 strongholds to battle against you. Chu Kuangren's voice echoed throughout the universe. In the 81 strongholds, countless swordsmen had a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Their swords were also within that torrent of swords. Chu Kuangren. As expected, you're the biggest obstacle to the Blood Tribe. King Ming stared at Chu Kuangren with murderous intent in his eyes. The other Blood Kings were also shocked. Chu Kuangren wielded hundreds of millions of swords from the 81 strongholds. What kind of terrifying power was that? Even the 12 Blood Kings would have to retreat if they joined forces. However, they could not retreat, and they would not retreat. Activating the Blood Abyss had exhausted the resources that the Bloodborne planet had accumulated over the past few eras. They no longer had the ability to activate it again. If they did not kill Chu Kuangren this time, they would not have another chance in the future. Kill? King Ming roared. The 12 Blood Kings joined forces to attack. Dragon Slayer slash. Sky Destroyer hand. Floating Cloud palm. Dark Tide Yellow Dragon slash. 12 different types of profoundness erupted with the power of a Tao Lord. Majestic and mighty, it turned into a colorful torrent that tore through the starry sky and blasted towards Chu Kuangren with its immense power. That power instantly forced the Dharma Tao Lord and the others to retreat. Bring it on. Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all. His expression was extremely cold. At that moment he was already in the unification Taoist realm. Using the firmament heavenly Tao's power and the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, he borrowed the swords of countless swordsmen from the 81 strongholds. At that moment he was not fighting alone. He represented the firmament star's sword Taoist power since the beginning of time. 81 surges of swords surged out and collided with the colorful torrent that was unleashed by the 12 Blood Kings. Boom boom boom. Violent rumbling sounds could be heard as the asteroids and meteorites within a radius of 10 million kilometers exploded like firecrackers. Countless swords were sent flying out. The colorful torrent was also gradually disintegrated. Far away, the firmament star also felt the impact of that terrifying power and trembled slightly. Fortunately, it was protected by the hateful parting formation. Otherwise it would not just be a slight tremble. After that terrifying attack, the 12 Blood Kings were forced to retreat. They looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. They did not expect that Chu Kuangren could withstand the combined attack of the 12 Blood Kings. It was their first time witnessing something like that. That attack just now has used up 1/3 of his swords. He can only block 2 more attacks at most. King Ming said loudly. The Blood Tribe still had the upper hand in this battle. Chu Kuangren's expression was calm and unfazed. With a thought, the countless swords behind him charged towards the 12 Blood Kings from all directions under his control. Block it together, King Ming said. When the 12 Blood Kings attacked, their mini-worlds erupted and overlapped to form a blood-colored barrier. When the swords collided with the barrier, a loud explosion was heard as if 2 stars had collided. Even the 12 Blood Kings felt pressured. Something's not right. Suddenly King Ming noticed something. Only a small portion of the swords were attacking them. Most of the swords were heading towards the blood abyss behind them. His target is the blood abyss. King Ming's eyes narrowed. Chapter 758. Oh no, his target is the blood abyss. The Wisdom King's eyes widened. The countless flying swords flew towards the blood abyss behind the Blood Kings, and in the blink of an eye, all of them crashed into the blood abyss. Amidst the explosion, an incredibly powerful sealing force erupted. The blood abyss that stretched for thousands of kilometers was quickly sealed. He's sealing the blood abyss. This is a sword formation. The Blood King's expressions changed drastically. The blood abyss was the Blood Tribe's secret weapon. It took them several eras of resources to open it. Now it was sealed by someone single-handedly. To them this was completely unimaginable. This is great. Brother Chu, I didn't know you had such a technique up your sleeve. The Dharma Taoist master and the others were overjoyed. However, Chu Kuangren, who was controlling the sword formation, frowned. He could feel a powerful resistance coming from the blood abyss. The blood abyss could not shrink any further after it had shrunk to 100 kilometers. Not only that, but countless swords began to fall. The sealing sword formation was showing signs of collapsing. The Wisdom King, Charm King, and the other Blood Kings could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Haha, Chu Kuangren, your sword formation may be powerful, but it's impossible to seal the blood abyss. Just accept your fate. The Wisdom King laughed. Chu Kuangren sneered. I don't believe in fate. He looked at the giant blood abyss. Since I can't seal the blood abyss, I'll destroy its source. With that, his figure flashed and shot towards the blood abyss. In your dreams. The Blood Kings wanted to stop him. However, the Dharma Taoist master and the others made their move. Although the blood abyss was not completely sealed, its suppressive force had greatly weakened, allowing them to unleash more combat strength. You guys are just putting up a desperate struggle. It's still too early to tell who will win. The Taoist master, the Heavenly Executioner, and the Blood Kings fought again. With them holding him back, Chu Kuangren dashed towards the blood abyss. However, a few top-notch heavenly honorables suddenly rushed towards him from the battlefield. Chu Kuangren, let us have a taste of your strength. Haha, even the Taoist master is suppressed by the Blood Tribe. How much combat strength can a cultivator like you possibly unleash? The Blood Tribe heavenly honorables sneered and attacked Chu Kuangren. All kinds of powerful profound mysteries were unleashed. Courting death. Chu Kuangren let out a light snort and raised his hand to unleash a punch. Ultimate profundity erupted. Boom. A fist force wrapped in boundless emperor energy was accompanied by the terrifying phenomenon of the sun and moon reversing, and it actually shattered several peak heavenly venerables with a single strike. This power, what's going on? The mouths of the blood race's heavenly venerables and Tao Lords were agape. What was going on? Even the Tao Lords were suppressed by the blood abyss, so why was Chu Kuangren not affected at all? Not only that, but he even destroyed a few heavenly honorables with a single punch? What the hell is going on? King Ming and the others could not help but frown. Blood Dark Force. I don't believe he's really invincible. The peak heavenly venerables of the blood race snorted coldly. A powerful suction force erupted from their bodies, sucking in the surrounding blood mist into their bodies. The Empyrean venerables' battle prowess was strengthened, becoming even more powerful. However, at that moment, Chu Kuangren did something that left everyone at the scene dumbfounded. He let out a low roar, and a suction force far more terrifying than that of heavenly venerables erupted, sucking in the surrounding blood mist into his body. His aura was also increasing. Everyone was dumbfounded. This was especially so for the blood race, whose eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. They could not be more familiar with the fluctuations that emanated from Chu Kuangren's body. It was the Blood Tribe's exclusive divine ability, the Blood Dark Force. Chu Kuangren could use the Blood Dark Force. Was that not the Blood Tribe's exclusive divine ability? Could he be a Blood Tribe member? Everyone was filled with doubts. I've studied the Blood Tribe's physiques thoroughly during this period of time. It's just the Blood Dark Force. What's so special about it? Chu Kuangren said calmly. Everyone could not help but be shocked when they heard that. Studying the Blood Tribe's physiques and turning their divine abilities into his own? How can he do something like that? Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The Dharma Taoist Master, Heavenly Yellow Taoist Master, and the others were shocked too. At that moment, they finally understood why Chu Kuangren had the Dharma Taoist avatar and so many Taoist physiques. It was all because of his research. Although it was inconceivable, it was the only explanation. Chu Kuangren could study the physiques of other people and other races. This is unheard of. The Wisdom King and the others could not help but tremble violently. It was their first time hearing about something like that. It was a completely new worldview for them. However, Chu Kuangren's improvement was not over yet. As he channeled his mind power, a gigantic colorful rune gathered in the air. It was the rune, Divine Nine Dragons Transformation. The spiritual chi within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers was sucked dry by the rune and turned into 9 colorful dragons that surged into Chu Kuangren's body. His combat strength had increased once again. Blood Dark Force, Taoist Unification Mode, Divine Nine Dragons Transformation. With all these enhancements, Chu Kuangren's cultivation level had risen to the Taoist Lord Realm, and it was approaching the mid-stage Minor Taoist Master level. Coupled with his various trump cards, his combat strength was unfathomable. He glanced at the blood abyss and a determined look flashed across his eyes. You're dreaming if you think you can destroy the Firmament Sword sect with just the blood abyss. He snorted coldly before he took a step forward. None of the heavenly venerables along the way could stop him. They could not even get close to him before they were crushed by the little world that he had released. At that moment, in the faraway firmament star, a dazzling silver-white sword ray cut through the void above the hateful parting heavenly formation and flew towards Chu Kuangren. Wherever the sword ray passed, the Blood Tribe members were shredded into pieces. That was a sword. A silver-white sword that was engraved with countless mysterious Taoist patterns. That's the Divine Terminus Sword. The Dharma Taoist Master's eyes narrowed. The other Taoists were shocked too. It's the Sword Taoist Master. Has he awakened? The Sword Taoist Master, the first exquisite 9 orifices sword heart in Firmament Star, was currently acting as the formation core, just like the Water Path sect master himself. No, the Sword Taoist Master can't leave the hateful parting heavenly, but he has sent his Tao weapon, the Divine Terminus Sword. He's using this method to help Brother Chu. The Dharma Taoist Master exclaimed. Upon hearing that, everyone came to a realization. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and grabbed the Divine Terminus Sword that was flying towards him. Then a man's voice rang in his mind. Young one, take my sword and fight. Chu Kuangren held the Divine Terminus Sword with a smirk. With the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, he did not need to refine the sword to unleash its power. Thank you very much, Senior. His figure turned into a stream of light and flew into the blood abyss. The Blood Kings did not look too good when they saw that. However, they were not too worried. The origin of the blood abyss is at the Blood Source Star. There are nearly 20 Taoists guarding that place. What can Chu Kuangren do? The Wisdom King sneered. The Dharma Taoist Master and the others' expressions darkened. Nearly 20 Taoists guarding it? No matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, could he really destroy the origin of the blood abyss when faced with such a lineup? Now we can only place our hopes on him. The Dharma Taoist Master took a deep breath and said, they could not unleash their full power under the blood abyss suppression, so they could only rely on Chu Kuangren. Chapter 759. Once Chu Kuangren entered the blood abyss, he could feel an endless amount of blood origin power gushing towards him from all directions. In such an environment, even the emperors of Firmament Star would find it hard to survive. Only cultivators with blood tribe physiques could survive, but even the blood tribe heavenly honorables could not absorb so much blood origin power. However, Chu Kuangren could. He knew very well that destroying the blood abyss's origin was not an easy task, so he wanted to increase his strength as much as possible. Hence, he pushed his universal cauldron physique to its limit and absorbed the blood origin power around him like a whale sucking in water. With the help of the blood dark energy, his strength continued to increase. The blood abyss was pitch black. At the end of the darkness, there was a flash of blood-colored light. Chu Kuangren dashed towards that light. When he passed through the light, his field of vision became extremely empty. He saw a towering blood-colored mountain peak. At the peak of the mountain was a huge blood-colored light orb that contained countless mysterious runes and Taoist patterns. Chu Kuangren activated his Emperor's thought and instantly knew where he was. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. He was now at the origin of the Blood Tribe, the Blood Source planet. The Blood Abyss planet was at least 20 light-years away from Firmament Star. Through the Blood Abyss, he had traveled 20 light-years to the Blood Source planet. Xiao AI analyzed this light orb. Chu Kuangren looked at the light orb in front of him. He guessed that this light orb was most likely related to the Blood Abyss. Yes, Master. With the all-knowing spirit's analysis, Chu Kuangren finally understood the information of this huge light orb. His guess was right. This light orb was the origin of the Blood Abyss. With the blood origin crystals produced by the Blood Source planet as its energy source and the sacred blood mountain as a medium, it could convert the impure spiritual qi in the universe into blood origin qi. To close the Blood Abyss, there were two ways. The first way was to have the Blood King shut it down. The second way was to destroy this light orb. The first way was impossible. However, the second way was much more risky. The energy contained in this light orb was too much. If it was destroyed by external forces, the energy that would be released would be enough to destroy the world. It could even destroy half of the Blood Source planet. Since Chu Kuangren was the saboteur, he was naturally the first to bear the brunt. The current situation in Firmament Star can't be delayed any longer. I can't afford to delay any longer. I can only take a risk. Besides, it's definitely a good thing for the Firmament Star to blow up half of the Blood Origin planet. There's no reason not to do it. Chu Kuangren's eyes gradually revealed a look of determination. He had an immortal body. What was there to be afraid of? Perhaps there were countless Blood Tribe cultivators who had never participated in the war on the Blooded Origin planet, and the explosion of the light sphere would be a devastating blow to them. However, Chu Kuangren could not care less about that now. This was a war between civilizations. It was destined that there would be countless deaths and injuries. Chu Kuangren raised the Heaven Terminus sword and unleashed a slash. The sword chi locked onto the light ball. However, before Chu Kuangren's sword could even touch that light orb, several lesser realms appeared at the same time and formed a barrier that blocked Chu Kuangren's sword chi. One Tao Lord after another walked out of the Blood God Mountain. These people were the previous kings of the 13 clans. However, they were now living in seclusion within the Blood God Mountain. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, one of the Blood Tribe Tao Lord was surprised. Oh, this aura belongs to someone from the Firmament Star. However, you have the Blood Origin energy on you. Who are you? The Blood Origin energy could only be controlled by the Blood Tribe. They had never seen it on any cultivators other than the Blood Tribe. Not to mention the Blood Tribe's nemesis, the Firmament Star. He wants to destroy the Blood Abyss origin. It seems like he came here through the Blood Abyss. How did a cultivator from the Firmament Star get here through the Blood Abyss? And this aura? Is it a heavenly Tao fluctuation? Interesting. This is really interesting. He must be the Firmament Star demon who killed the White King. I can't believe he would walk right into our trap. The Blood Tribe Tao Lords began to discuss. They had heard about Chu Kuangren from the Blood Kings. However, it was their first time meeting him, so they could not help but look at him curiously. They were not at all worried that he could destroy the light sphere. After all, with them here, no matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, could he fight against more than 10 Tao Lords all by himself? Stop joking. The fact that Chu Kuangren could kill a Tao Lord without even reaching the Tao Lord realm was already shocking enough. But to fight against more than 10 Tao Lords all by himself? How could they believe such a ridiculous story? In fact, they had never thought about it at all. Chu Kuangren did not want to waste his breath on these people. He was about to unleash his spatial conveyor technique, but these Tao Lords seemed to be on guard against his spatial technique. One by one, they sealed off the surroundings with their lesser realms, not giving him a chance to unleash his technique at all. Not only that, but they were on the Blood Origin planet's sacred Blood Mountain. The spatial structure here was different from the outside world. Since Chu Kuangren had just arrived, he had yet to fully analyze the spatial structure here. This made it even more difficult for him to unleash his spatial conveyor technique. Chu Kuangren counted. There were 17 Tao Lords here. 17 Tao Lords. This battle was obviously going to be a difficult one. Kill? Chu Kuangren seemed to be emotionless in his unification Taoist state. He yelled and swung the divine terminus sword in his hand. Chu Kuangren's combat strength had increased significantly under the enhancement of the Dao weapon. Coupled with the ultimate profoundness, the attack was extremely powerful. However, the combined attacks of more than 10 Dao Lords were nothing to him. Divine River Slash. Star-plucking finger. The Blood Tribe Dao Lords unleashed their ultimate profoundness. The collision of energy set off a terrifying storm in the surroundings. Chu Kuangren's sword chi was instantly shattered. However, he did not dodge the energy impact at all. Instead, he relied on his powerful physical strength and immortal body to force his way through it. Does this guy have a death wish? Humph, even so, he won't be able to destroy the blood abyss. One of the Dao Lords took a step forward and unleashed a punch. Chu Kuangren did not dodge again. Instead, he took the punch head-on and swung the divine terminus sword in his hand. The sword ray flashed and the Dao Lord could not dodge it completely. The sword slashed through his chest and a large amount of blood splattered out. *Emenet. Blood cloud chains. One of the Dao Lords unleashed his Dao Lord technique, and a dark red chain flew out, trying to bind Chu Kuangren. World lock. Purple chains erupted from Chu Kuangren's body as well. When the chains collided in the air, the red and purple lights clashed, producing a metallic sound. Chu Kuangren continued to dash towards the light sphere. In your dreams. A blood fiend clan Dao Lord with a staff in his hand roared. He waved the staff in his hand and multiple staff shadows surrounded Chu Kuangren. Invincible technique universal reversal. Chu Kuangren did not dodge. Instead, he raised his sword and swung it. The staff and sword collided and both sides were pushed back. At that moment, a blood-red chain suddenly crawled onto Chu Kuangren's left hand and bound him tightly. I've caught you. The Blood Fiend clan Dao Lord who was controlling the chain sneered. However, Chu Kuangren remained emotionless. He raised the divine terminus sword and slashed at his left shoulder without any hesitation. Chapter 760. Chu Kuangren raised his sword and slashed at his own arm. With a loud crack, blood splattered everywhere. A severed arm flew out along with the chain. The Blood Tribe Taoists could not help but narrow their eyes. *CK, this guy is a lunatic. He severed his own arm. They could not help but feel a chill down their spines. It was the first time the Blood Tribe Taoists had seen such a suicidal cultivator fighting in such a frenzied manner. It was too terrifying. However, what happened next shocked them even more. They saw countless flesh sprouts rapidly growing from the wound on Chu Kuangren's shoulder. In the blink of an eye, a brand new arm had grown out. What? Everyone was dumbfounded. This kind of self-healing speed? What's going on? His arm is definitely not as good as before. No Taoist can maintain his full combat strength after severing one of his arms. Unless it was a cultivator who specialized in Soul Dao, no matter how strong a cultivator was, their combat strength would be reduced after their body was injured. Even immortals were no exception. That's right. I'm afraid this self-healing is just a facade. The Taoists snorted. However, Chu Kuangren did not give them a chance to discuss or be shocked. After his arm recovered, he had already launched another attack. Countless sword chi surged around his body and formed into sword chi clones that charged at the Taoists. Useless clones. No matter how many there are, their combat strength is nothing. The Taoists did not care. The sword chi clones might be effective against some blood tribe armies, but against the Taoists, they could destroy a whole bunch of them with a single attack. No, he's trying to confuse us. Don't be fooled by his clones. Pay attention to his real body. The blood tribe Taoist with the long staff yelled as if he had thought of something. The others also reacted. Their emperor's thoughts circulated and soon, they found Chu Kuangren's real body among the densely packed sword chi clones. Sure enough, the real body did not fight them directly. Instead, it flew towards the light sphere at the peak of the sacred blood mountain. Despicable B** starred. There were 3 blood tribe Taoists in front of Chu Kuangren. The 3 of them attacked together. Meanwhile, colorful rays of light circulated behind Chu Kuangren as the incredibly powerful 10,000 Taoist avatar erupted and unleashed a powerful punch. With a loud bang, a terrifying energy wave shook the entire Blood God Mountain. With the Blood God Mountain as the center, the space within a radius of 10 million miles shook. With 3 Taoist masters joining forces, Chu Kuangren could not help but be pushed back. Behind him, a Dao Lord punched out. However, he did not dodge. The punch landed squarely on his back, and with the help of the huge impact he flew towards the ball of light. The Dao Lords were stunned. They glared at the Blood Dao Lord who had ambushed them from behind. You're a traitor, aren't you? That Tao master felt a little wronged. How could he have known that someone would fight like this? They finally understood. Chu Kuangren's immortal body was truly immortal. After he recovered, his combat strength was not affected by his physical body at all. This ability was too abnormal. Under the Blood Tribe Taoist's relentless attacks, Chu Kuangren had already neared the light orb. However, there were still a few Taoists standing guard in front of the light orb. Two of them held a saber and a sword in their hands, and their expressions were cold. You want to get close to the light orb? Dream on. The two of them wielded their sabers and swords and charged towards Chu Kuangren. 7 Emotions Illusory Melody. An immortal technique was cast. Incredibly mysterious Taoist fluctuations surged. With Chu Kuangren's current strength, even a Tao Lord would not be spared from this immortal technique. Countless emotions surged towards them, causing ripples in the two Tao Lords' Taoist cores. The sabers and swords in their hands could not help but stop for a moment. That moment was enough for Chu Kuangren to evade their attacks. What? Immortal technique? This person has mastered an immortal technique. The Blood Tribe Tao Lords could not help but narrow their eyes. Chu Kuangren continued to dash towards the light orb, leaving only the last two Tao Lords guarding it. Both of them knew very well that they could not let Chu Kuangren get any closer. Blood Lion Roar. Blood Screen Divine Flare. The two Tao Lords made their moves. One attacked while the other defended. A blood lion that was formed from Emperor's Qi and Taoist patterns charged towards Chu Kuangren with unparalleled power. It was so powerful that it could smash a small planet into pieces. Another blood-colored light screen was rapidly forming, and it gradually enveloped the light orb, not giving Chu Kuangren any chance to escape. However, a smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face. This distance is enough. He was now only 100 feet away from the light orb. 100 feet was enough. Time halt. Chu Kuangren immediately unleashed his final trump card. An invisible ripple spread and enveloped everything within 100 feet radius. The roaring blood lion froze in midair, and a gap was left in the blood-colored light screen that was forming. Within 100 feet radius, the wind, clouds, flowers, trees, sounds, and even the two Tao Lords were all frozen in place. 100 feet away, the other Tao Lords were so shocked by this strange scene that their eyes trembled violently. Time ability. D*imminent, this is the time ability. Countless Tao Lords were scared half to death. Without another word, they unleashed all sorts of techniques towards Chu Kuangren. However, all of their attacks stopped when they were within 100 feet radius. They could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. Under the Unification Tao Lord realm, Chu Kuangren's time halt ability was greatly enhanced. From 10 meters, it became 100 feet. Not only that, but even the Tao Lords could not resist this time energy. Even if it could only stop the Tao Lords for less than a second. However, that was enough for Chu Kuangren. Divine Apex Sword, lend me a hand. Chu Kuangren growled. The Divine Apex Sword in his hand also erupted with the brightest light. With a single slash, the ultimate profoundness, the ultimate Emperor essence, and the firmament starry heavenly Tao's power turned into a dazzling sword ray. The sword ray was so majestic that it was like a torrent. No. The Tao Lords were horrified. However, there was nothing they could do. The sword ray landed on the blood-colored light orb, and the incredibly powerful sword ray immediately caused cracks to appear on the light orb. As beams of light shot out, more and more cracks appeared on the light orb before it exploded. An endless amount of destructive energy gushed out from the light orb and instantly covered the entire Divine Blood Mountain. Chu Kuangren was the first to bear the brunt of it. His starlight immortal physique could not withstand the destructive energy at all. In the blink of an eye, it disintegrated. As for the 17 Tao Lords, they were instantly vaporized. The entire Divine Blood Mountain was completely destroyed. However, the vast amount of energy that the bloodborne planet had spent several years to accumulate was still radiating in all directions. The entire bloodborne planet shook and cracked. 20 light-years away. On the firmament star battlefield. The gigantic blood abyss suddenly disappeared, and the countless swords seemed to have lost their momentum as they floated in mid-air. The Blood King seemed to have sensed something as he stopped. They looked in the direction of the bloodborne planet and could not help but tremble. The Divine Blood Mountain has been destroyed. Chapter 761. On the battlefield in the firmament. The blood abyss was closed. The 12 Blood Kings seemed to have sensed something. They looked in the direction of the blood origin star, their eyes filled with endless fear. Their bloodlines were throbbing and trembling. This meant that the vampire civilization originated from the Blood God Mountain. It was destroyed. For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through their minds. How had the Blood God Mountain been destroyed? Chu Kuangren? How did he do it? If the Blood God Mountain was destroyed, what about the Blood God? What about the Blood Origin Star? What should they do next? If the Blood God was gone, would they continue to fight? All the vampires were at a loss. Retreat. King Ming roared with bloodshot eyes. The vampires began to retreat. You want to leave? What kind of place do you think the extraterritorial battlefield is? You can come and go as you please? Dream on. The Tao Lord of Myriad Laws roared furiously as he pushed his minor world to its limits. Furious roars came from the remaining 80 strongholds. Emperors charged out and started to counterattack. A new round of slaughter began. This was a war between civilizations. It was bloody and cruel. The battle lasted for a full 10 days. The Firmament Star cultivators were in hot pursuit while the Blood Tribe fled. Although the Blood Abyss had disappeared, the remnants of the Blood Mist still lingered. In the end, the Blood Tribe managed to leave the extraterrestrial battlefield at the cost of 4 Tao Lords. On the other hand, the Firmament Star's side had suffered even greater losses. Countless cultivators and emperors died in this battle. Even 5 Tao Lords had perished. Most of them died in battle while the Blood Abyss was still around. The Battle of the Bloody Firmament is over. Empyrean Ghost Blade said as he sat on a Blood Clan corpse. The Blood Tribe's troops had completely withdrawn from the extraterritorial battlefield. This meant that they would not launch any more attacks. In the past, the shortest battle of the Bloody Firmament would last for several years. However, this time it only took a few months. However, the number of casualties was incomparable to any of the previous ones. I wonder how fellow Taoist Chu is doing. Empyrean Ghost Blade gazed in the direction where the Blood Abyss had once been. After the disappearance of the Blood Abyss, Chu Kuangren had never appeared again. However, everyone knew that the disappearance of the Blood Abyss was definitely related to him. More than a month had passed since the end of the Battle of the Bloody Firmament. Tianyuan Planet, where the Tianyuan Mystery Land used to be. The Tao Lords had all gathered. This included Luo Shui and the Heaven Executioner. They all had some injuries on their bodies, but they didn't have the time to recuperate. They were more eager to know what had happened to the Blood Origin Star. How's your investigation going? The Myriad Arts Tao Lord and the others looked at one of the Tao Lords. That person was dressed in a black robe and floated in midair like a specter. This person's name was Tao Lord Nethercloud. He was one of the 24 Tao Lords who were most adept at scouting and concealment. Over the years, all the information regarding the blood race had been provided by this person. Among the 24 Tao Lords, it could be said that he had played the most important role. He's here. Tao Lord Nethercloud said indifferently. A dozen black crows flew in front of the Tao Lords. These feathered crows were Tao Lord Nethercloud's investigative means. I've sent out more than 10,000 feathered crows, but only a dozen or so returned. It seems that the Blood Origin Planet has been keeping a tight lid on information. The more it is so, the more severe the situation on the Blood Origin Planet is. Hurry up and see if there's any information on fellow Taoist Chu. Tao Lord Nethercloud extended a finger and pointed at one of the feathered crows. The feathered crow turned into countless specks of light and dissipated. Those were images constructed by the specks of light. In the images, the Blood Origin Planet was in a state of devastation. Volcanoes were erupting, floods were raging, snowstorms were howling, and all sorts of natural disasters were happening. It was like the end of the world. The Tao Lords could not help but feel shocked. The Blood Origin Planet has actually become like this. The entire civilization must have suffered a huge blow. This is too terrifying. What exactly did fellow Taoist Chu do? The Myriad Arts Tao Lord and the others found it unbelievable. Tao Lord Nethercloud waved his sleeves and the dozen feathered crows were all destroyed. A large number of images and voices appeared in front of everyone's ears. The Blood God Mountain is gone. Is the blood race finished? Has the Blood God abandoned us? Don't be discouraged, everyone. The Blood God will never abandon his people. The Blood Kings are currently thinking of ways to rebuild their homeland. Sigh, we fought for so long only to end up like this. If we knew this would happen, we wouldn't have fought at all. It's been 12 years. This war has been going on since the ancestors of my ancestors. It's been 12 years. The voices of countless blood race members rang out as images appeared. However, most of them were not of much value to the Tao Lords. After going through all the information, they only obtained an extremely small amount of useful information. The hearts of the blood race are wavering. The Blood God Mountain has been destroyed, and the entire civilization has been devastated. It seems like they won't be able to stir up any big waves in the next few eras. This is great. Yes, this is great. The Tao Lords revealed looks of joy. This was undoubtedly the best news they had heard in the past dozen or so eras. Only the myriad arts Tao Lord frowned. Where's fellow Taoist Chu? I don't know. Tao Lord Nethercloud shook his head. There's too little information. Suddenly he frowned and looked into the distance. He saw another feathered crow flying over with a jade scroll hanging on its neck. There's another one? But why is there another jade scroll? Tao Lord Nethercloud was puzzled. He took the jade scroll. Following that, the jade scroll cracked and a large amount of information appeared before everyone's eyes. Every piece of information was crucial to the blood race. Master came to the Blood God Mountain and destroyed the origin of the Blood Abyss, causing the destruction of the Blood God Mountain and the death of 17 blood race Tao Lords. Master also died in that battle. The blood race is currently rebuilding. Due to the opening of the Blood Abyss and the battle on the Blood God Mountain, it's estimated that they won't be able to launch another large-scale interstellar war for the next 5 eras. 13 Blood Kings have fallen one after another, and the collateral branches of the White Clan, Moon Clan and Luminous Clan have rebelled with the intention of replacing the main lineage. All sorts of crucial information appeared. The Tao Lords were a little confused. Who gave this to us? 17 blood race Tao Lords have fallen? Only Luo Shui was deep in thought. She said, this must be from Brother Chu's spy in the blood race. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to have planted a spy in the blood race. No wonder he knew about the blood race's transportation route and intercepted it in advance. So that's how it is. The Tao Lords finally understood. However, they were shocked after that. If that's the case, then the master that this person mentioned is undoubtedly Brother Chu. He said that Brother Chu has fallen? A hint of joy flashed across the heavenly yellow Tao Lord's eyes. However, he did not show it. Instead, he lamented, exchanging one person for 17 blood race Tao Lords. It's worth it. Worth it, my asteriscus. At that moment, the Dharma Tao Lord roared and glared at the heavenly yellow Tao Lord with bloodshot eyes. Do you know how valuable Chu Kuangren is? If he doesn't die, he'll definitely become an immortal in the future. Do I need to tell you how valuable an immortal is to an entire civilization? 17 Tao Lords. So what if 100 blood race Tao Lords die? Can they compare to Chu Kuangren who can become an immortal? The Dharma Tao Lord was furious. What are you yelling at me for? Did I kill him? Besides, there's only one Chu Kuangren. Is there a need for you to pay so much attention to him? Do you think he's a human king? The heavenly yellow Tao Lord snorted coldly. You're so short-sighted. Without the blood race, who knows when another civilization will set their sights on Firmament Star. In this universe, without immortals, we're nothing but prey to others, the Dharma Tao Lord said in a sorrowful tone. Chapter 762. The Dharma Taoist master had high hopes for Chu Kuangren and saw him as the future of Firmament Star. Now that he had received news of Chu Kuangren's death, he felt worse than anyone else. Even his tall and straight back had become a little crooked. The once elegant and charming Dharma Taoist master now looked like he had one foot in the grave. His entire body exuded a sense of dejection. From afar, a sword ray suddenly flashed past. It was a sword. Everyone's emperor's thoughts shifted and saw that sword. It's the sword Taoist master's divine terminus sword. The heavenly yellow Taoist master exclaimed. However, the body of the sword was already covered in cracks, as if it would shatter at any moment. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle it had to go through to turn a Taoist weapon into such a state. The divine terminus sword streaked across the void and flew towards the hateful parting heaven. The Taoist sword has returned, but Brother Chu is nowhere to be seen. It looks like he's really fallen. One of the Taoist masters sighed. At another location, on the Crimson Sun planet, a majestic sword chi suddenly erupted. An incredibly mysterious sword Tao fluctuation spread out and covered half of the extraterrestrial battlefield, causing the swords in the hands of countless swordsmen to tremble. Even Emperor weapons were no exception. On that planet, a sword ray shot up into the sky, and a sword hum echoed throughout the universe, attracting the attention of the Taoist masters. Another sword? That's the Crimson Sun planet? Is this the sword that the Scarlet Sun Taoist master forged for Brother Chu? The Dharma Taoist master and Luo Shui were surprised. The body of the sword was as smooth as jade, and Taoist patterns intertwined and flowed within it. There was a faint purple glow, and its majestic sword aura covered half of the extraterrestrial battlefield. It was a Taoist weapon. Moreover, it was an extremely high-grade Taoist weapon. On the Crimson Sun planet, the Scarlet Sun Taoist master looked at the sword with excitement in his eyes. I finally succeeded. With the purple gold as the material and the secret realm as the support, this descendant self-sword has finally been reforged. Then, as if he had thought of something, his excitement faded like the tide and he sighed. It's a shame that the new sword has been forged, but the owner of the sword is gone forever. This sword has no owner. A good weapon could only be of its greatest value in the hands of a good owner. Without a doubt, this Kunwu sword was the best weapon Taoist Master Scarlet Sun had ever forged in his life. It should have had the best master, but unfortunately that master was no longer around. Nothing saddened the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord more than this. The brand new Kunwu sword was floating in the void. The sword body was trembling slightly, and the bright sword light made the stars dim. It was waiting for a person to summon it, but after waiting and waiting, that familiar summon never appeared again. Kunwu was somewhat bewildered. Where's the master? It circled twice in the air before it turned into a sword ray and flew towards the firmament star. It wanted to return to the place it was most familiar with and wait for its master. The news of Chu Kuangren's death soon spread throughout the extraterrestrial battlefield. Countless people were shocked by the news and could not believe it. That white-robed war god, the ruler of the battlefield, had fallen? The battle of the bloody firmament was over. Firmament Star had won. But in a trance they seemed to have gained nothing. The passing of a single person caused the entire battlefield to seem dejected. Countless soldiers were reminiscing the memory of that white-robed figure. Where am I? Chu Kuangren looked around, a little confused. He was now in the middle of a colorful river. To be precise, it was not a river, but it was made up of countless light spots that flowed forward, forming a river-like scene. The river had no end and its source could not be seen. In the river, countless images were reflected. There were people, beasts, mountains and rivers. However, what concerned Chu Kuangren the most was his current state. He was not in his physical form. He was in his soul form. He was sitting on a lotus platform and his body was glowing brightly. It was the Bodhi spirit that he had formed after cultivating the Bodhi lotus scripture. Xiao AI. Chu Kuangren tried to summon the all-knowing spirit. Yes. The all-knowing spirit Xiao AI responded. Chu Kuangren could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Analyze my current environment. Yes, analyzing. Analysis successful. Master is now in Firmament Star's River of Time. The all-knowing spirit said. River of Time? Chu Kuangren was even more confused. How did I get here? The River of Time was a very mysterious place. Chu Kuangren had only heard of it in legends, and no one had ever confirmed its existence. Yet now he was in the River of Time. How did I get here? It's the time-space mirror. When Master's physical body was destroyed on the Blood Source star, the time-space mirror automatically pulled Master's soul into Firmament Star's River of Time to protect him. As for why he ended up in Firmament Star's River of Time, according to analysis, it's most likely because Master possesses the Firmament Star's heavenly Tao energy. The all-knowing spirit Xiao AI explained. It can't be. Even the immortal body can't withstand that energy? No. According to analysis, although the immortal body has been disintegrated, it's not completely destroyed. It just needs some time to recover. How do I get back? Find the Firmament Star's time node when Master's physical body was destroyed, then you can go back, Xiao AI said. I see. Let me give it a try then. Chu Kuangren's emperor's thoughts surged and covered the River of Time. However, the River of Time was too vast, and his emperor's thought could not cover it completely. When his emperor's thought covered the River of Time, countless images and information surged into his mind. He saw the scene of Firmament Star's birth. When Firmament Star was first born, the land was barren. After countless years of birth, the first complete living being was finally born. It was a majestic man. His brows were straight like swords and his eyes were bright like stars. Every move he made could topple mountains and rivers. This man was the first living being in Firmament Star. In other words, he was the leader of the gods. After the leader of the gods, other living beings were born one after another. Since the heavenly Tao of Firmament Star had yet to be officially born, these living beings that were born naturally possessed incredible power. They called themselves the gods and ruled over Firmament Star. After that, the heavenly Tao was finally born. The heavenly Tao began to maintain the order of Firmament Star. The living beings that were born after birth no longer had the terrifying power to destroy the world. This was what it meant to be a postnatal living being. Although postnatal living beings were weak, they had great potential for growth. Among them, there was one type of postnatal living being that was the weakest but had the greatest potential for growth, and that was humans. The newly born human race was extremely weak. Faced with a primitive living environment, natural disasters and all kinds of wild beasts were enough to cause countless deaths and injuries. Even the survival of the race was a problem. However, the human race was strong and did not compromise in the face of such a dangerous environment. In the long struggle for survival, not only did the human race's civilization not get destroyed, but it also continued to expand like a spark. Some people invented words to record information. Some people ground stones into swords and spears to fight against the beasts. Some people used trees and bamboo to build the first houses, giving the human race shelter from the wind and rain. Some people raised silkworms and weaved their silk into clothes to protect people from the cold. Some people tasted hundreds of herbs to fight against diseases. As Chu Kuangren watched the originally weak human race grow stronger and stronger, he was overwhelmed with emotions. Vaguely, he had some kind of realization. However, he then saw an image. In the image, people were piling up slaughtered cows and sheep in front of a statue. They were kneeling on the ground, their faces filled with sincerity. Chu Kuangren knew that was the first time the human race had worshipped. The gods had appeared. Chapter 763. The deities had appeared. Chu Kuangren had a complicated expression as he watched the humans piling up the cows and sheep in front of the deity's statue. The humans worshipped the deities for spiritual comfort, while the deities reared the humans for faith energy to strengthen themselves. It was a consensual thing. If no cultivators appeared, this situation would probably continue. However, the deities' mistake was that they thought they could control everything. They underestimated the humans' pursuit of free will. Time continued to pass. Chu Kuangren saw the first human who came into contact with cultivation. Then, the number of cultivators slowly increased. After that, a white-robed immortal arrived in the firmament dome realm. He was also a human. The immortal did not alert the deities. His aura was very weak, as if he was injured. He then recuperated in the human territory for a while. During that time, he began to guide the humans in their cultivation. With just a few pointers, the human cultivators improved rapidly. Chu Kuangren stared at the immortal. It was a white-robed elder with an enigmatic aura. The elder seemed to have noticed Chu Kuangren as he looked up into the sky. His gaze met Chu Kuangren's in the river of time. His eyes were deep and filled with a hint of a smile. He even bowed slightly at him. Chu Kuangren could not help but be surprised. He can see me in the river of time? Tieske looks like he really is an immortal. He continued to observe. After guiding the humans in Firmament Star for a while, the immortal left. Before he left, he raised his hand and scratched a stone wall with his fingertip, leaving a deep finger mark. After that, he glanced at Chu Kuangren, who was in the river of time, and smiled before he left the Firmament Star. After the immortal left, his cultivation method spread, and the human cultivators in Firmament Star increased. Later on, the first emperor of the human race appeared. He attained his Tao on a mountain. From then on, that mountain was blessed by the heavens and became the Emperor Mountain. Later on, more cultivators came to the Emperor Mountain to attain their Tao. The human race's growth gradually attracted the deities' attention, and they began to suppress the cultivators' forces in the dark, until the rebel god war began. Chu Kuangren witnessed the development and strength of the human race in the river of time. He could not help but feel excited and touched. Gradually he entered a state of enlightenment. In the river of time, Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged with Taoist patterns circulating around him. His Tao was becoming stronger and stronger. His Tao was the Tao of invincibility. But what did it mean to be invincible? Continuously defeating others? No. After witnessing the development and growth of the human tribe, Chu Kuangren had a new realization. A truly invincible person did not depend on how strong he was. It was because he could constantly surpass himself. He was his own greatest enemy. The real invincibility is self-improvement. Just like how the human race constantly strives to become stronger, passing down the torch. Only through self-improvement could one be invincible. After realizing this, Chu Kuangren's Tao had been elevated. As Shaoqin comprehended, his Tao reached a peak state. Since ancient times, only a sovereign personage had grasped a peak Tao. Just when Chu Kuangren was trying to gain insights on the path of self-improvement and invincibility, a wave suddenly came from the front and engulfed him. After the waves subsided, Chu Kuangren had already disappeared into the river of time. Human clan, divine sense tribe. On a stone bed. A young man with a pale face slowly opened his eyes. The young man looked around in confusion, touched his body and could not help but frown. What's going on? Did I transmigrate again? The young man was Chu Kuangren. To be precise, his soul was his, but his physical body was not. Shall AI come out and explain? Master, you were in the river of time just now, but you were engulfed by a wave formed by a time node. Which time node am I at now? According to your era, it should be the ancient era. Chu Kuangren was dumbfounded. Had he traveled to the ancient era? What's going on with this body? Master, the soul of this body is in a broken state. Your soul happened to land nearby, and this body has a high compatibility with your soul, so it automatically attached itself to it. After listening to Xiao AI's explanation, Chu Kuangren felt a headache coming on. He sighed. Forget it, let's figure out the situation I'm in first. With a thought, he began to look into his own soul, and he saw many floating light spots around his soul. These light spots must be the original owner of this physical body. With a thought, he drew these light dots over. In an instant, a large amount of information flowed into his mind. This young man was called Song. He was the former young master of the Divine Will tribe, which was a famous tribe. Everyone in the tribe was born with the ability to manipulate mind power. Song had a unique talent in mind power, which allowed him to master mind techniques extremely quickly. However, because he offended the Frost Master deity in his early years, he was branded with a frost mark, which caused his body to be constantly eroded by the frost chi. Because of that, Song was removed from his position as young master of the Divine Will tribe, making him an ordinary tribesman. In order to please the gods, the people of the Divine Will tribe would bully him from time to time. His soul was broken, and it was the doing of the tribesmen. Song, my current identity is Song? Chu Kuangren had a strange look on his face. If he remembered correctly, the human king's name was Tsong. In other words, he was a human king. Forget it. Let me confirm my strength first. Chu Kuangren shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Now that he was in an unfamiliar environment, his strength was his biggest guarantee. Since he had changed his body, Chu Kuangren's original cultivation level was gone. However, his soul was still there and he could still use his mind power. Aside from his mind power, he tried the unification Taoist state. He could still borrow the power of the heavens. Besides that, the physique tome, the time-space mirror, the omniscient spirit, and even the fantasy roulette were still in his soul. Although my strength has been reduced, my soul has always been strong, so the amount of mind power I can use is incredibly large. Moreover, there are many ways to use mind power in Song's memory. In terms of combat strength, I can still fight against the Taoist master. Besides that, Chu Kuangren raised his hand, and a mysterious Taoist pattern appeared on his palm. That was his Tao. The ultimate Tao that was sublimated, the Tao of self-improvement and invincibility. Although I can't unleash the full power of this ultimate Tao without the Emperor's essence, it's still a good way to scare people. Chu Kuangren murmured. Then he thought about what he should do next. Of course he couldn't stay here forever. However, it was not easy to return to his era. He needed to enter the river of time again. The reason I could enter the river of time before was mainly because of the time-space mirror. If I want to enter again, I'll need this item. He took out the time-space mirror and wanted to study it. But at this moment his stomach growled. Oh, I almost forgot. This body of mine is no longer the same as before. Let me find something to fill my stomach first. Chu Kuangren shook his head and said. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since he last tasted hunger. This sudden taste of hunger made him feel nostalgic. Chapter 764. Chu Kuangren was just about to walk out of the room. Instead of calling it a room, it was more like a cave. Although humans had invented houses and buildings, the telekinesis tribe had yet to be fully popularized. Some people still lived in caves, such as Tsong, who was bullied by the telekinesis tribe. Logically speaking, as the former young master of the tribe, Tsong should have been able to afford a house no matter how poor he was. In fact, his parents, who were the leaders of the tribe, were now wearing luxurious clothes made of silk and living in a luxurious building with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters. In this era, it could be considered as a palace. In comparison, his son was bullied by others in the clan, and even his soul was shattered by others. The reason was that Tsong had offended a deity. His parents were the most loyal believers of the deity. To them, Anyone who offended a deity was unforgivable. Even their own son was no exception. "It's your bad luck to have parents who are fanatics," Chu Kuangren muttered. He scanned the area with his emperor's thought and soon found a few long-eared rabbits in the nearby forest. He wanted to use the spatial conveyor skill to teleport over, but he realized that he could not use that skill for the time being. With a single thought, the few long-eared rabbits were captured by his mind power. These rabbits were all demonic beasts with golden core and nascent soul cultivations, but in front of Chu Kuangren's mind power, they were no different from ordinary rabbits. He snapped his fingers. A ball of flame appeared. Not long after, the rabbits were roasted. Chu Kuangren gobbled them up. There was no seasoning, so the taste was average. However, with his current condition, he could not ask for more. After eating the rabbits, he drank a few mouthfuls of spring water. After eating and drinking, Chu Kuangren felt his body warm up, and the chill in his body had weakened a little. "It seems that before I study the time-space mirror, I must first remove the frost mark from my body." Chu Kuangren frowned. A few years ago, the Divine Will tribe suffered from a natural disaster. They did not make offerings to the gods in time, and the gods punished them. The heavens were indignant and retorted a few times. Then, the master god of ice, who was far away on the divine mountain, planted this frost mark across space. From then on, he suffered the pain of being eroded by the cold all year round. Under the erosion of the cold, his psyche power could no longer continue to grow. However, this frost mark was not a difficult task for Chu Kuangren. With the help of his powerful mind power, it did not take long for him to remove the frost mark in no time at all. The divine mountain was where the overgod resided. The cold-looking master god of ice and snow suddenly opened her eyes and frowned. "Oh, my frost mark has been removed? Could it be that a human emperor has taken action?" He snorted softly. "Lowly human, I originally wanted to let you live a few more years in this bitter cold." Next, he sent a subordinate god to the Divine Will tribe. Recklessly removing the cold mark was a provocation to him, and on this land, no one could offend the dignity of God. Chu Kuangren did not know anything about the godly mountain. After dealing with the cold mark in his body, he found some medicinal ingredients in the mountain range and refined some pills for fasting. These fasting pills were not of a high grade. In the cultivation world, even golden core and nascent soul cultivators would not be interested in them. However, these pills were enough to keep Chu Kuangren from eating or drinking for 10 years. He began to study the time-space mirror in the cave. A month had passed. He had finally figured out a way to solve this problem. The time-space mirror was made up of 9 nested rings, and the center of each ring was filled with countless Taoist patterns. Chu Kuangren had only studied the outermost 2 rings, and that was how he mastered the spatial shift and time halt abilities. If he wanted to enter the river of time, he would need to fully understand the 3rd ring on the time-space mirror. Besides that, opening the river of time would require an enormous amount of energy, and that energy could not be any weaker than a great Taoist lord's. The former was still manageable. Chu Kuangren's cultivation base was gone, but his realm and level of enlightenment were still there. Although the 3rd ring was mysterious, he already had some clues about it. He would definitely be able to fully understand it in a few months' time. The latter would be difficult. Energy that was comparable to a great Taoist lord, not to mention now, even after 10 or so eras, there was not a single great Taoist lord in the firmament star. Wait a minute. I might not be able to find a great Taoist lord, but there are deities now. The overgods are already comparable to a Taoist lord, and their godheads contain an enormous amount of energy. If I kill a few more overgods and take a few more godheads, I might be able to reach the level of a great Taoist lord. Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin and set his sights on the overgods. According to the historical records, the war of defiant gods was started by the human kings. If that was the case, then he would be the one to repeat history. If the human race wanted to continue to develop, there would be no place for the deities. He couldn't tolerate it either. After making up his mind, Chu Kuangren continued to study the mysteries of the time-space mirror's 3rd ring, hoping to fully understand it as soon as possible. Time passed. 10 days had passed, 20 days had passed, another month had passed. Chu Kuangren had already mastered half of the mysteries of the 3rd ring. Not only that, but throughout the process, he had also mastered the time halt and spatial shift abilities that the time-space mirror had given him. Now, he could use these 2 abilities with his mind power without the need for cultivation. In other words, he could use his mind power as an emperor's essence. This gave Chu Kuangren some inspiration. The emperor's essence was energy. Meanwhile, mind power was also a form of energy that could not be seen or touched. Perhaps he could temporarily use his mind power to replace the Emperor's essence. That way, with his powerful soul power, even if his cultivation was gone, he could still use his previous techniques. In fact, the mind power technique was very similar to the Emperor's essence technique in many ways. It did not take much effort, and with Chu Kuangren's level of understanding, he soon found the common point between the two and connected them. Junior Realm open. Chu Kuangren's mind moved, and his mind power and Taoist patterns intertwined to form a junior realm that covered a 10-kilometer radius around him. Everything within this 10-kilometer radius was under his control. I did it. The junior realm was originally formed by the combination of Emperor's essence and Taoist patterns, but now I can use my mind power and Taoist patterns to condense it, and it's not any weaker than before. I'm such a genius. Chu Kuangren could not help but smile. His Tao was already at the ultimate Tao. If he were to return, coupled with the ultimate Emperor's essence in his body and his mind power, the power of this junior realm would increase by leaps and bounds. Not only his junior realm, but his other techniques would also be enhanced. After all, everyone else was using Emperor's essence to battle. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, had the Emperor's essence and mind power, which would double his combat strength. Chu Kuangren was secretly looking forward to it. Just as Chu Kuangren was feeling happy, he suddenly sensed a commotion not far away. It seemed like someone was fighting. He put away his junior realm and activated his mind power. Then he saw 3 people beating up a green-robed young man in the forest. Chapter 765. Inside the forest. 3 young men were attacking a young man. The young man was holding a bag in his hand. The young men channeled their mind power and turned it into ice arrows and fireballs that were aimed at the young man. The young man shielded the bundle behind him and held a black iron sword in his hand. He waved the sword and shattered the ice arrows and fireballs that came at him one by one. Qingyi, do you have a death wish? The tribe strictly forbids anyone from practicing qi refinement. How dare you break the rules? One of the young men looked at the young man and said with a gloomy expression. Hearing this, Qingyi's expression did not change. He said indifferently, Young Master once said that the method of qi refinement is the future of the human race. If the spiritual sense tribe continues to be so rigidly conservative and do not know how to improve, it will be replaced one day. Young Master? Your young master's corpse is probably rotting by now. The young man in the lead sneered. Fujin, what did you say? Qingyi's expression changed and his tone turned cold. Hey, you probably don't know yet. Your young master had a duel with my big brother Fu Yuan a few months ago, but his mind power has not improved at all. How could he be a match for my big brother? There's no way he could survive after being hit by my big brother's soul crusher all. The young man Fujin sneered. Qingyi's face turned pale and his mind was in a mess. Fujin and the others took this opportunity to channel their mind power and condense the spiritual qi between heaven and earth, turning it into ice arrows and fireballs that were aimed at Qingyi. At this moment, Qingyi's mind was uneasy. The sudden attack caused him to become flustered and unable to deal with it at all. Just when he was in danger, an invisible mind power wave turned into a barrier that blocked the ice arrows and fireballs around him. This mind power. Who is it? The young man, Fujin, and the others' expressions changed slightly. A figure slowly walked out from the forest. That person was dressed in white and had delicate features. Although he was not considered handsome, he had an extraordinary aura that made it hard for people to look away. It's Firmament. How is it possible that he's not dead? Fujin and the others' expressions suddenly became horrified. They stared at Chu Kuangren, who was slowly walking towards them as if they had seen a ghost. Qingyi, on the other hand, looked at Chu Kuangren with a joyful expression. However, he was slightly stunned as he felt that the young master in front of him was a little different. Although the face was still the same. However, his temperament was completely different. It was ethereal and otherworldly, making people want to approach him, but they couldn't touch him. Young master, are you all right? Nothing. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Through his memories, he already knew the identity of the man in green. He was his only friend in the Divine Force tribe. After he was stripped of his position as the young master, everyone mocked him and bullied him in order to gain the favor of the gods. Only Qingyi, the playmate who had grown up with him, remained by his side and never abandoned him. Song, I didn't expect you to be so lucky. You actually didn't die. Also, it was you who instigated Qingyi to cultivate qi refinement. I will definitely report this matter to the clan leader and have him punish the 2 of you. Fujin said loudly. However, Chu Kuangren merely glanced at him. With a single thought, the cold air between heaven and earth intensified. A gust of cold wind blew past. Then, 3 more ice sculptures appeared on the scene. Beside him, Qing Yi's eyes widened in astonishment. Freezing with a thought. Young master, your freezing with a thought has become so powerful. Freezing with a thought was one of the telekinesis cultivation techniques of the Divine Force tribe. It was also one of Tsang's cultivation techniques. However, because of the frost mark, his telekinesis had not improved for a long time, and the power of this cultivation technique had also stagnated. Now, however, Chu Kuangren had frozen Fu Jin and the other 2 in front of Qing Yi. The strength he displayed was far beyond Qing Yi's imagination. One should know that Fu Jin's strength was considered outstanding among the younger generation of the Divine Force tribe. He was comparable to a Qi refinement sage. Not bad. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He looked at Qing Yi and used Xiao AI to analyze him. From what he could sense, Qing Yi's current strength was equivalent to a sage. Moreover, he was only in his 20s. A sage in his 20s would definitely be the top sky prides in the future. Of course, this was also due to the environment of the ancient era. In this era, although the cultivation civilization had not been developed for long, the spiritual qi was abundant and the heavenly Tao had manifested. It was very suitable for cultivation. Let's go back first. Chu Kuangren chuckled and ignored the few ice sculptures. Both of them returned to the cave. Qing Yi, you've been gone for a few months. Where have you been? Chu Kuangren asked curiously. Upon hearing that, Qing Yi took out the bag on his back and said, Young master, I found something good for you. He opened the bag. Inside the bag was a white, furry cloak. Young master, this is made from the fur of the white flame fox. It's very warm. Try it on, Qing Yi said. Chu Kuangren was stunned. You went to kill the white flame fox? Yes. That was too dangerous. The white flame fox is famous for its powerful strength. Are you hurt? Chu Kuangren asked. The white flame fox was a powerful wild beast tens of thousands of miles away from the Divine Force tribe. It had the strength of a great sage, which was no weaker than Qing Yi. It must have taken Qing Yi a lot of effort to kill it. It's all right, young master. The fur of the white flame fox can suppress the cold qi. With this cloak you'll feel better. Qing Yi put the cloak on Chu Kuangren. It was neither too big nor too small, and it fit him perfectly. Young master, how is it? Qing Yi asked. After Chu Kuangren put it on, he felt a warm feeling coming from the cloak. Moreover, the cloak was furry and very comfortable to the touch. Thank you. This cloak is very good, but I've solved the frost mark in my body. You don't have to risk your life for me anymore. It's solved? Qing Yi was shocked. That's a mark left by the Frost Master deity. Young master, how did you solve it? I can't explain it in a short time. But I've been studying this mark for many years and it was solved a few days ago. Chu Kuangren found an excuse. He did not want to expose his identity as someone from the future. Who knew how it would affect the future? Although Qing Yi felt that Chu Kuangren was different, she did not think too much about it. She was happy that he had solved the problem that had plagued her for many years. Young master, I don't think Fu Yuan will let you go after you killed Fu Jin and the others. Why don't we leave first? Qing Yi said worriedly. Fu Yuan was the strongest cultivator of the younger generation in the Divine Will tribe. His father was one of the few psychokinesis masters in the Divine Will tribe, and his combat strength was comparable to an emperor's. That was a realm that Qing Yi could never reach. Of course we'll leave. But before that, I have something I need to do, Chu Kuangren said. He was not interested in staying in a tribe that was filled with deity believers. Even if Qing Yi did not say so, he would have left anyway. However, there were 2 things in the Divine Will tribe that he was interested in, and he wanted to get his hands on them before he left. Song, come out now. At that moment, a voice came from outside the cave. Chu Kuangren and Qing Yi walked out. More than 10 tribesmen surrounded them, and Qing Yi instinctively shielded Chu Kuangren behind her. What are you guys trying to do? No way. They just killed Fu Jin and these people found out so quickly? Chapter 766. Song, the god is here. He wants you to meet him. The leader of the Divine Thought tribe said. Oh, the god is here? Yes, hurry up and follow me to pay your respects. If you perform well, you might even be able to obtain God's forgiveness. It's not impossible for him to remove the frost mark and restore your identity as a young master. That tribe member said. Let's go then. Chu Kuangren tightened the cloak on his body and chuckled. Green Robe followed behind him. Both of them arrived at the central area of the Divine Thought tribe. There were countless houses there, and any one of them was better than the cave that Chu Kuangren was staying in. Diske, look, isn't that the old young master? He's wearing a cloak made from the fur of the white flame fox. Why is he wearing such a good item? It's like a flower stuck in cow dung. Did he steal it? How could he get his hands on such a good item when his life is already so difficult? The people around Chu Kuangren could not help but point fingers at him. Chu Kuangren remained calm in the face of such a situation. From Tsang's memory, he had long gotten used to such things. He was also curiously observing his surroundings with his emperor's thought. In the entire divine thought tribe, most of them were ordinary people. Only a few of them had telekinesis talent and could cultivate it. To them, telekinesis was a gift from the gods. As for chi refinement was not allowed in the divine thought tribe. To them, chi refinement was equivalent to stealing the gods' power. It was a great disrespect to the gods and was unforgivable. However, Tsang had traveled a few years ago and witnessed the power of chi refinement cultivators. He knew that they were the future of the human race. That was why he allowed Green Robe, who had no telekinesis talent, to secretly cultivate chi refinement. That way she would at least have the ability to protect herself. Chu Kuangren and Green Robe arrived at a palace in the tribe. A white-robed man sat in the palace. The man's body was surrounded by a frosty chi that formed ice blocks on the ground. Many servants in the palace were shivering from the cold. Some of them even had the frosty chi enter their bodies. Even if they survived, they would suffer from many illnesses for the rest of their lives. Only a few people were able to remain unscathed in this cold air. These people were the telekinesis masters of the Divine Sense tribe. One of them was a handsome middle-aged man. He was the closest to the man in white who was the god. He was very tall, but when he stood in front of the god, he unconsciously hunched his body and looked like he was trying to flatter him. This person was the leader of the Divine Sense tribe. Tsang's father. Unfilial son, you've finally come. When Father Tsang saw Tsang, he snorted coldly, God has summoned you and you actually dare to be slow. Hurry up and kneel. Chu Kuangren ignored him and looked at the deity before him with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. So you're just a lower deity. Hearing his words, everyone's expression changed. To them, God is supreme. Even if Chu Kuangren was a lower celestial, he was still in existence that was above them. Chu Kuangren's words and tone were clearly belittling the celestials. If God was unhappy, he could destroy him with a wave of his hand. It didn't matter if they destroyed the heavens. What would they do if they vented their anger on the Divine Sense tribe? At that thought, everyone could not help but feel terrified and angry. They looked at Chu Kuangren as if they wanted to eat him alive. Beside Chu Kuangren, Qingyi was also shocked. The young master was too bold. ****, how dare you disrespect the celestials? Beside him, a young man stood up. Chu Kuangren knew who he was. It was Fu Yuan, the murderer of Tsang. At that moment, Fu Yuan was puzzled. He did not know why his soul crusher all did not kill Tsang. However, that did not stop him from showing off in front of the celestials. In his opinion, as long as he performed well, he might be chosen by the celestials to be a divine messenger. That would be a supreme honor. At that thought, Fu Yuan could not help but feel excited. His mind surged and turned into an invisible giant hand that grabbed at Tsang. However, when his invisible giant hand approached Chu Kuangren, an indescribably majestic mind power instantly shattered it. Fu Yuan's expression changed slightly. What happened? At that moment, Chu Kuangren was already looking at him. There was a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. After all, how many blood tribe cultivators had Chu Kuangren killed in the extraterrestrial battlefield? More than 1 billion. No ordinary person could withstand Chu Kuangren's murderous intent. Even if it was just a trace, it was enough to make Fu Yuan feel like he had fallen into an ice cellar. This guy, why does he have such a gaze? Fu Yuan's face was as pale as a sheet. He gritted his teeth and activated his strongest mind power technique. ***, taste my soul crusher all. The soul crusher all specialized in attacking one's soul. If an emperor were to be hit by this attack, they would not have a good time either. It was the same technique that killed Tsang back then. The soul crusher all struck Chu Kuangren's soul like a hot knife through butter. A scream was heard. It was not Chu Kuangren but Fu Yuan. He felt like his soul crusher all was like an egg that had been hit on a piece of granite. It exploded on the spot. The backlash from the soul crusher all caused his soul to scream in pain. How stupid! Chu Kuangren said calmly. With a thought, he activated his mind power. A chill erupted from under Chu Kuangren's feet and quickly spread out, instantly freezing Fu Yuan into an ice sculpture. It was the frozen thought. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw that. Was that still the young master they knew? How did he become so powerful all of a sudden? My son. At that moment, a middle-aged man beside the deity roared in grief and looked at Chu Kuangren angrily. That man was Fu Yuan's father, one of the few experts in the divine thought tribe. I'll make you pay for my son's death. Fu Yuan's father roared, and his emperor-level mind power gushed out like a tidal wave. The surrounding spiritual qi gathered and surged, turning into a huge flame giant that emanated a menacing aura. That was the divine thought tribe's mind power cultivation technique, the flame spirit giant. The flame spirit giant slapped its palm towards Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren yawned and cast the frozen thought again, instantly freezing the huge flame giant into an ice sculpture. Even Fu Yuan's father was not spared. Everyone at the scene was completely dumbfounded. Not only did Chu Kuangren kill Fu Yuan in an instant. Now, even Fu Yuan's father could not withstand a single attack from him. Sang's father was dumbfounded. He looked at Chu Kuangren and felt that the person in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. The way Chu Kuangren looked at him was also indifferent and emotionless. You're not Sang. Who are you? Sang's father said in horror. Next to him, the low god also became a little interested. He slowly stood up and said, Interesting. I didn't expect a human with the Lord over God's frost mark to have such strength. Your psyche power is stronger than anyone in the divine thought tribe. Unfortunately, you don't respect the gods. As he said that, he slowly raised his hand and unleashed a powerful divine power. A howling cold wind swept across, and a majestic chill was about to explode. He believed that his lower celestial strength was enough to handle everything. However, his expression changed immediately. Chapter 767. A terrifying energy fluctuation came from within the palace. Everyone in the divine thought tribe could feel a chill sweeping out from the palace. Everyone was trembling in fear. They knew that it was the wrath of a god. Who the F***ck is this? How dare they anger a god? D***mn. I hope the god won't take it out on us. God, please forgive us. Someone knelt on the ground and begged the god for mercy. Not long after, the divine energy fluctuation that swept out from the palace disappeared. Everyone was stunned for a moment before joy appeared on their faces. Thank you for your mercy. Your grace is boundless. Everyone was praising the god's mercy. Meanwhile in the palace, the god who was praised by everyone could not help but tremble when he saw Chu Kuangren in front of him. There was an unprecedented look of panic on his face. He felt that his divine energy was suddenly suppressed by an extremely powerful force that could not be released at all. And that force was right around him. Junior Realm. A heavenly honorable's junior realm. The lower celestial looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. He did not expect to meet a heavenly honorable who could fight against a god here. He was too unlucky. Aren't heavenly honorables rare? How could I meet one so coincidentally? The lower celestial wanted to cry but no tears came out. Then he was puzzled. A heavenly honorable's junior realm was formed by the fusion of Emperor's Qi and Taoist runes, but why was there no Emperor's Qi in this person's junior realm? What's going on? However, he could not figure it out. That was because Chu Kuangren had already reached out a finger towards him. With just a light tap, a surge of chilling qi exploded and landed on his chest. The Frost Master deity's subordinate deities were supposed to be experts in chilling qi. Yet now he was frozen into an ice sculpture by the chilling qi. Chu Kuangren walked towards the ice sculpture and channeled his mind power on his fingertip. With a loud boom, the ice sculpture turned into ice shards. Within the shards was a prismatic crystal. It was a lower celestial's godhead. Chu Kuangren picked it up and handed it to Green Robe beside him. Green Robe took the godhead in a daze. He had yet to recover from the shock. It wasn't just him. Everyone else in the palace hadn't recovered from their shock. A god had been killed right in front of them. Moreover, he had been easily crushed to death. Alright, didn't I just kill a god? What's there to be surprised about? Let's go. Chu Kuangren patted Green Robe's shoulder. Xianyi was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly followed. Behind him, Father Tsang and the others did not dare to move at all. After Chu Kuangren walked out of the palace, he went to a place in the Divine Thought tribe that had a collection of telekinesis cultivation techniques. He took away all of the best telekinesis cultivation techniques there as he planned to focus on his telekinesis for the time being. These telekinesis cultivation methods were of great reference value to him. Then he came to a forest. There was a fruit tree in the forest. There were dozens of gray fruits growing on the fruit tree. This was the second item that Chu Kuangren wanted, the soul fruit. The soul fruit was one of the firmament star's 10 great spirit fruits. As the name suggested, this fruit had the ability to strengthen one's soul energy, which was quite useful to Chu Kuangren now. There were hundreds of guards around the soul fruit tree, and they were all the elites of the Divine Thought tribe. Among them, there were more than 10 sage-level telekinesis cultivators, and 2 of them were comparable to emperors. The Divine Thought tribe valued the soul fruit tree very much. After all, increasing one's soul energy was equivalent to increasing one's telekinesis, and one soul fruit was enough to create a telekinesis master. Besides, the soul fruit was also an important offering to their god. It would ripen once every 10,000 years, and there would only be 99 soul fruits every time it ripened. 90 of these fruits were used as offerings. Song? What are you doing here? This is not a place you should be at. Get lost. A few guards roared at Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren ignored them. With a lift of his arm, hundreds of guards were blasted away by an invisible force. Chu Kuangren strolled to the front of the soul fruit tree. He used his telekinesis to pluck all the fruits one by one. Hey Qingyi, don't you have a yin and yang ring? Chu Kuangren glanced at Qingyi and saw that she was holding the lower deity godhead and the pile of scrolls. Her hands were so busy that she could only keep her sword by her waist. Qingyi was confused. A yin and yang ring? What's that? Chu Kuangren tried to recall. There was no such thing as a yin and yang ring in Song's memory. The yin and yang ring had not been invented in this era. It was not just a yin and yang ring. There were also alchemy, formation, runes, and other auxiliary cultivation techniques that were still in the early stages. Chu Kuangren pondered. Since he did not have a yin and yang ring, he found a sack and stuffed all the soul fruits into it. Beside him, Qingyi could not help but be dumbfounded. To the Divine Thought tribe, each of these soul fruits was extremely precious, but Chu Kuangren just stuffed them all into the sack. After collecting the cultivation techniques and the soul fruits, Chu Kuangren left the Divine Thought tribe with Qingyi. Along the way, some fanatics found out that he had killed a deity and wanted to seek revenge regardless of the difference in strength. You blasphemer, you will die a horrible death. Put the soul fruits down. Be ****, the soul fruits are divine items. How can you just stuff them into a sack? What a waste, you bastard. Chu Kuangren did not even bat an eyelid at the scoldings and accusations from the tribesmen. He did not even flinch at all. Some of those who wanted to seek revenge couldn't even get close to him before they were crushed into powder by his telekinesis. Qingyi, do you regret it? Chu Kuangren looked at Qingyi, who looked a little unnatural. Qingyi grew up here, and now that he had betrayed the Divine Thought tribe with him, he thought that he would feel some kind of psychological burden. Qingyi shook his head and said, I'm alone here. Following the young master is my only choice. I don't regret it. When he was very young, Qingyi's parents were killed because they talked back to the deities, so he did not have a good impression of the deities. He was even more resistant to this tribe that worshipped the deities. He had wanted to leave for a long time. But are you really the young master? Qingyi looked at Chu Kuangren and asked doubtfully. No matter how slow he was, he could still sense the change in Chu Kuangren. In just a few months, he had gone from being a bullied old young master to killing a deity with ease. That change was too unbelievable. As long as you're willing, I'll always be your young master. Chu Kuangren chuckled and looked at Qingyi. Qingyi looked at Chu Kuangren and saw sincerity in his eyes. He did not sense any hostility. In the end, he could only put his doubts aside. No matter how big the change was, the young master was still his young master. His only choice now was to follow the man before him. Soon the two left the Divine Thought tribe. The news of the death of a deity soon reached the godly mountain. When the Ice Master God of the God Mountain received the news, she let out a look of excitement. An ant-like human who has been marked by me with a frost mark has suddenly become able to kill a god? Interesting. Truly interesting. Soon the news spread from the godly mountain. Song was on the blacklist of the deities. After all, there were not many who dared to kill a deity in this era. Chapter 768. The news of Chu Kuangren killing a deity spread like wildfire. Soon enough, the name Firmament Star spread like wildfire. Besides the deities who saw him as an enemy, the humans were also paying attention to him. How brave of him to kill a deity. However, the deities will not let go of someone who dares to kill a deity. Let's wait and see. Perhaps this person can be recruited into the God-defying pavilion. The Firmament Star was now ruled by the deities. Although there was a turbulent undercurrent beneath the surface, It was still calm on the surface. The news of Chu Kuangren killing a deity was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, causing ripples. Congratulations, host. You have drawn a legendary craftsman's inheritance. Chu Kuangren listened to the fantasy roulette's voice and could not help but smile in satisfaction. An equipment craftsman's inheritance is not bad. In the current firmament star, besides chi refinement, the other auxiliary cultivation techniques were still in the early stages. His equipment crafting technique was unparalleled in this era, and it would be very useful for his future actions. Looking at Green Shirt, who was carrying a pile of luggage, Chu Kuangren felt that it was more important to use this technique to refine a yin and yang ring. Green Shirt, wait here. Chu Kuangren's figure instantly disappeared. Not long after, he returned. In his hands there were still some ores. Young master, why are you carrying a pile of stones? These stones are very useful. Chu Kuangren smirked. These ores were called hidden spatial stones, and they were the main materials used to refine yin and yang rings. These ores were now distributed all over the world, so they were not too rare. However, the art of equipment crafting had not been popularized yet, so not many people noticed the value of these ores. Chu Kuangren moved his mind, and a ball of flame floated from his palm. It was a flame that was activated by his mind power. Although it was not comparable to the phoenix flame with Chu Kuangren's mind power, its temperature was so high that few mystical flames in Firmament Star could compare. The hidden spatial stone gradually melted in his palm. Gradually it formed into a ring. Chu Kuangren injected his mind power into it to open up a space. Soon, a yin and yang ring was created. Take it and toss your luggage inside. Chu Kuangren then told Qingyi how to use the yin and yang ring. Xianyi took the ring and couldn't help but feel suspicious. Was this small ring really that powerful? He pointed the ring at his heart and injected his spiritual power into it. After a flash of light, all the luggage in front of him disappeared. This. Xianyi opened his mouth wide and was speechless for a long time. Chu Kuangren channeled his mind power and knocked his opponent on the head. Let's not talk about this. This is too miraculous. Qingyi exclaimed as he touched the universe ring in his hand. His eyes sparkled as if he had found a treasure. What a fuss. Chu Kuangren shook his head and chuckled. With Qingyi's cultivation, he could have as many Chen Kuan rings as he wanted in the future. However, in this era, the value of this one and only Chen Kuan ring was probably no less than a Dao artifact. Looks like in order to strengthen the human race, I'll need to start a technological revolution here. Alchemy, equipment refinement, runes, formation techniques. Whatever I know, I'll pass it on here, Chu Kuangren murmured. He had thought it through very clearly. Since he had come to this era, he had to do something. Qingyi, what do you think about me becoming the king of the human race? Chu Kuangren suddenly said. Qingyi, who was still playing with the universe ring, was stunned when he heard his words. Young master, you're not joking, are you? Although the human race looked weak on the surface as far as he knew, there seemed to be many strong cultivators hiding in the dark. To be the king of the entire human race. Perhaps even the gods could not do such a thing. Do I look like I'm joking? If you want to be the king, then I'll be your guard. I'll sweep away all obstacles for you. Qingyi said seriously. This bit of strength of yours is still not enough. I'll work hard to become stronger. I believe in you. Chu Kuangren continued his journey with Qingyi. As for where his destination was, it was not clear yet. Chu Kuangren had a vague plan in his mind, but to implement it, he needed a place where he could stand firm. In a forest, Chu Kuangren and Qingyi were both leaning against a tree. Chu Kuangren was munching on a gray fruit in his hand. It was a soul fruit, the 74th soul fruit that he had eaten. Under the nourishment of dozens of soul fruits, his soul energy had become much stronger than before. In terms of soul energy alone, there were not many in the minor Taoist realm who could match up to him. Because of that, his mind power had also become much stronger. Young master, the Yinwu tribe is just ahead. Yinwu tribe. Oh, I remember it. It's one of the top 10 human tribes. There must be many cultivators in the tribe, right? Chu Kuangren said. Yes. There were many human tribes in the Firmament Star, but the top 10 tribes were the most powerful. Some of these tribes were like the Transcendent Thought tribe, blindly worshipping the gods. Most of the people in these tribes were believers of the gods. Some tribes, on the other hand, had discovered the true meaning of power through cultivation and had gradually stopped worshipping the gods. The Yinwu tribe was one of them. Then let's pay them a visit. If it's appropriate, we might stay here for a while. Chu Kuangren laughed. Just as the two of them were about to head to the tribe, Chu Kuangren suddenly sensed something and stopped in his tracks. Hold on. Young master, what's wrong? There's a deity's aura. It's not far from here. Chu Kuangren's emperor's thought perception could cover the entire firmament star, but he usually kept it to himself. After all, who would keep their senses on all the time? However, even if Chu Kuangren did not have his senses activated all the time, he was still very sensitive to strange auras within a certain range. 3,000 miles away. Chu Kuangren's spiritual thoughts spread out and arrived at a valley. In the valley there were two deities. Judging from their auras, they were the subordinate deities of the windstorm master god. In front of these two subordinate deities was a ferocious beast that looked like a tiger with fleshy wings on its back. It was Cheongqi. Cheongqi, I want you to attack the Yanwu tribe. How are your preparations going? One of the subordinate deities asked. Cheongqi hesitated and said, there are many experts in the Yanwu tribe. I don't want to become enemies with them. Oh, so you're going to disobey the gods? Cheongqi's eyes were filled with fear as he said, I wouldn't dare, but it's just me alone. I'm afraid I won't be a threat to the Yanwu tribe. Don't worry about that. Besides you, there's also Qi Thunder Beast and the others. They've agreed to help too. This? All right. Cheongqi nodded. Very well. Tomorrow at this time, all of you will attack the Yanwu tribe together. When that time comes, we'll attack and repel you. One of the superior subordinate deities said. Understood. Chu Kuangren heard every word of the conversation in the valley. He sneered and said, another self-directed and self-acted play. Gods really can't get tired of this. Chapter 769. When humans encountered unbearable hardships, they would seek help from the deities. This was how the deities developed their faith. In the past, the humans were so weak that the deities did not even need to deliberately create hardships for them to seek help from the deities. However, over the years, the cultivators had been growing stronger and stronger. The humans had gradually become less reliant on the deities. When the deities realized this, they naturally would not sit idly by. Hence, all sorts of hardships created by the deities took turns. The frost god created extreme cold, the tempest god created violent winds, the ocean god created tsunamis, and the Osiris god released thousands of evil spirits. The endless hardships made the humans miserable. They could only seek help from the deities again and again. That was how the deities obtained the faith they wanted. This is how the deities act. They self-directed and played the humans in the palm of their hands, Chu Kuangren said calmly. Qing Yi was stunned when he heard what Chu Kuangren said. He knew that the deities were not easy to deal with, but he did not expect them to be this despicable. Don't they care about the human cultivators? The cultivators do, but they can't. What do you mean? Qing Yi was a little confused. Chu Kuangren continued, the cultivators can intervene, but they can't reveal too much strength, lest the deities become wary. In the eyes of the gods now, although the human cultivators are interesting, they are not strong enough to threaten the status of the gods. And the human cultivators are also using this point to secretly accumulate their strength, waiting for the opportunity to counterattack in one fell swoop, so they can't be exposed for the time being. Therefore, the human cultivators can only fight against the gods at this stage without revealing their true strength. Xianyi suddenly understood and nodded. He then asked, can the Yanwu tribe withstand the disaster created by the gods this time? Chu Kuangren scanned the entire Yanwu tribe with his emperor's thought and shook his head. The strongest cultivator in the tribe is only in the beginning emperor realm. It's basically impossible for them to withstand the attacks of Cheongqi and the Thunder Beast. Then should we intervene? Of course. Chu Kuangren smiled. He would not sit back and watch the deities act so presumptuously in front of him. The next day, a thunderous roar came from the Yanwu tribe. Cheongqi, Ho, and Thunder Beast appeared in the tribe. These ferocious beasts were powerful and naturally knew how to cultivate. Adding on the abundant spiritual energy of this era and the manifestation of the heavenly Tao, it didn't take them a few hundred years to cultivate to the early emperor realm. In the Yanwu tribe, the most powerful cultivator was a burly man with a head full of red hair. He was also the leader of this tribe, Yanwu. Yanwu was also at the origin emperor realm, but he was unable to withstand the combined attacks of the beasts and was quickly defeated. Faced with this situation, some of the clansmen were shaken. They knelt on the ground and wanted to seek help from the gods like before. Seeing this, Yanwu felt helpless as well. Compared to the gods, his power was still too weak. One had to know that even the weakest god had the strength of a celestial venerable. They were much stronger than the initial emperor realm. A god who had been observing in the dark was ready to take action. However, one of the other gods stopped him and said, "There's no need to rush. Let's wait for more of their casualties. The more unforgettable their suffering is, the stronger their faith will be. This level of suffering is still not enough." The god's lips curled into a cold smile. Hearing this, the other gods also had an expression of understanding. "You're right. Then let's wait and let these lowly humans know that worshipping the gods is the only way for them to survive in this world. Qi refinement and cultivation are all bullshit." Xiong Qi, Thunder Beast, Ho, and the other ferocious beasts were about to attack again and slaughter the Yanwu tribe. Countless humans couldn't help but tremble at the sight of these ferocious beasts, not having the courage to fight them at all. A burly man roared and charged forward with a spear in his hand. "It's brave warrior Atu. Atu, it's up to you." Everyone looked at the burly man Atu and couldn't help but feel hopeful. Atu's spear stabbed into Xiong Qi. But with a clang, the spear broke into two, while Xiong Qi was completely unharmed, not even a single hair fell. This scene caused everyone to fall into despair again. Atu looked at the spear in his hand and was at a loss. His spear could pierce through a mountain, but it couldn't even harm a single hair on Xiong Qi's body. The difference was just too huge. "A human who isn't even an emperor dares to harm my body?" Xiong Qi scoffed coldly and raised his hand to deal with Atu. Just as Atu thought that he was about to die, Xiong Qi's claw stopped in midair and couldn't descend anymore. Then Xiong Qi's face was filled with fear. "What is going on? What is this power? This isn't god power, it isn't a god attacking." Xiong Qi was frightened by the unexpected change. Especially from this power, he sensed an aura that made him fear even more than that of a god. What was this? It must be a god showing himself. A god is showing himself. Seeing Xiong Qi's sudden change, those who were sincerely praying to the gods were delighted. As expected, only a god could protect them. Qi refinement and cultivation were all unreliable. "I'm not a god." A chuckle was heard. A skinny young man in a white cloak slowly walked over. Behind him was a young man in green clothes. Everyone looked at each other when they saw that young man. Where did this sickly guy come from? How dare he insult the gods? A middle-aged man shouted at Chu Kuangren. "Sickly guy?" Chu Kuangren looked at himself. Indeed, Song's physical condition did not look good because he had been suffering from the cold qi all year round. His face was a little pale too. He did look a little ill. He did not care about the middle-aged man's insults, but Green Robe could no longer sit still. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. "You're asking for it." Green Robe drew his sword and was about to attack. Chu Kuangren raised his hand to stop him. "Don't bother." Green Robe could only angrily sheath his sword and glare at the middle-aged man. That man was so scared that he fell to the ground. "Who are you? How dare you interfere in our affairs?" The wild beasts looked at Chu Kuangren with fear. Although the young man before them looked weak, they did not know why he made them feel a chill down their spines. That feeling was even scarier than facing a god. "A few puppies. Get down." Chu Kuangren chuckled. As soon as he said that, the few wild beasts at the scene felt an incomparably horrifying force descending from the sky. With a bang, the few wild beasts were pressed to the ground without any resistance, unable to move. The Yanwu tribe's people, including the Emperor Yanwu, stared with their eyes wide open in disbelief at that scene. Those were all powerful wild beasts that were famous far and wide. He told them to get down just like that. Where did this guy come from? After Chu Kuangren suppressed the wild beast, he looked up into the sky and said, "You've watched enough. It's time to come out." Chapter 770. You've watched enough. It's time to come out. Chu Kuangren said calmly. The two deities who were observing in the dark looked at each other. Did he notice us? This person is strange. There are no traces of qi refinement on him, yet he can easily suppress these beasts and even notice us. Should we show ourselves? No rush. Let's observe for a while longer. The two deities were considering whether to show themselves. If they showed themselves now, it would mean that they had been watching the beasts wreak havoc. If the people of the Yanwu tribe saw this, their faith would definitely plummet. This was the reason why they were so afraid. In the Yanwu tribe, everyone looked at the sky, which did not move at all, and felt very puzzled. "Brother, who are you calling?" "Two deities hiding in the dark," Chu Kuangren said calmly. His words immediately displeased some of the believers in the tribe. "Are you kidding me? If the gods were here, they wouldn't have let these beasts run wild. they would have killed them long ago. That's right. Do you think that the gods will just watch us being brutally killed by the beasts? You're just babbling nonsense. Child, the gods are merciful. They wouldn't do such a thing. Please stop slandering the gods. The people of the Yanwu tribe kept pointing fingers at Chu Kuangren. From their point of view, Chu Kuangren was slandering the gods. Such an act was heinous and the believers would never forgive it. Looks like I'll have to drag you out myself. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The deities who were observing in the dark could not help but scoff at his words. A mere mortal wants to drag us out? What a joke. I'd like to see what he can do. The two deities were disdainful of Chu Kuangren. One had to know that they were all superior gods. According to the human race's ranking system, they were superior heavenly lords. There were only a few heavenly venerables in the entire human race. Not to mention upper heavenly venerables. Amidst the deities' playful gazes, Chu Kuangren gently lifted his hand and pointed a finger at them from afar. An unimaginable surge of mind power erupted. A large portion of the void trembled. Amidst the tremors, the expressions of the gods hidden in the void changed, and they frantically urged their divine powers to resist the tremors. But even so, he was still blown out of the void. Everyone could see that the two gods were in a sorry state. Yes, it's the subordinate god of the Tempest Master God. And a high god. Why would God appear there? The 33 main gods had a large number of subordinate gods, and in order to identify their factions, these subordinate gods all dressed differently. For example, the two storm subordinate gods that appeared in front of everyone were wearing cyan clothes with a whirlwind pattern drawn with golden threads. Coupled with the fluctuations of divine power, they looked very noble. The believers of the Yanwu tribe were stunned. They had never thought that the god would really be watching from the side, watching them suffer. They felt as if their beliefs were collapsing. God, why are you doing this to us? God, please explain. The believers held on to their last hope and asked the god. However, before they could say anything, Chu Kuangren spoke first. What else could it be? It's because they were the ones who found these wild beasts. Chu Kuangren chuckled and activated his mind power. A light screen appeared in the void. On the light screen was the scene of the conversation between the two gods and Xiongqi. Chu Kuangren had recorded everything with his mind power. How could this be? So that's how it is. Under the irrefutable evidence, the two gods were unable to defend themselves. As gods, they looked down on humans. Since the truth had been exposed, they were too lazy to explain themselves. However, they were more curious about Chu Kuangren now. That energy just now was mind power. You're from the Divine Thought tribe. The gods had already sensed Chu Kuangren's mind power. They were not unfamiliar with this ability. After all, the Divine Thought tribe had always been their loyal believers. Your Tsang. One of the gods said loudly, the god killer Tsang. Chu Kuangren nodded. That's me. Well, I didn't expect to meet you here, and you even dared to ruin our plans. I guess this trip won't be a waste if I bring your head back with me. The god sneered. Then a majestic divine power suddenly erupted from the god's body. Clouds and mist gathered around him, and a storm swept across the area. Countless trees were snapped by the storm, sand and pebbles were sent flying, and all the buildings in the Yanwu tribe trembled. Yanwu could not help but be horrified when he sensed the powerful energy. Is this the power of a god? He was only an Emperor Realm cultivator, but he was still too weak. Boy, feel the power of a god. The god snorted coldly. He threw a punch at Chu Kuangren, and the storm gathered to form a terrifying wind dragon that swept away the trees and pebbles. The people behind Chu Kuangren fled in all directions in fear. They had seen the god's power before. That one attack was enough to kill all of them. The god wanted to kill them because they had witnessed the god's pathetic state and knew the despicable deeds that the gods had committed. The wind is so strong today. Chu Kuangren wrapped his cloak tightly around him. He activated his mind power. Mysterious Taoist patterns spread out from Chu Kuangren. It was Chu Kuangren's ultimate Tao, the Tao of self-improvement and invincibility. The Taoist patterns and mind power intertwined and enveloped the entire Yanwu tribe. The trembling buildings stabilized and the howling storm calmed down. As for the attack that the higher god unleashed, it instantly collapsed, leaving behind only a pile of broken wood and dried branches, a lesser realm. You're a heavenly honorable. Wait, why isn't there any emperor's essence in this lesser realm? Who are you and how did you do it? The two gods widened their eyes in disbelief. They felt that their divine powers were completely suppressed, and it was difficult for them to use them. They were gods. Moreover, they were higher gods who were second only to the overgods. In this land, they were not afraid of anyone below the overgods. Yet now they were being suppressed by a human. Chu Kuangren looked at the two gods in the sky and said, "I don't like to raise my head when I talk. You two better stay on the ground." Boom. An indescribably horrifying force erupted. The two gods felt as if their bodies were smashed by a planet, and they immediately fell from the sky onto the ground. Chu Kuangren walked up and stepped on one of the gods' heads. He said, "Now you look more pleasing to the eye." At that moment, the majesty of the gods was completely gone. The believers of the Yanwu tribe completely lost their faith when they saw that. They looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. This man had just stepped on a god. B****. You're going against the entire celestial race. The gods will never forgive you. You'll die, and you'll die horribly. Horribly. Boom. Chu Kuangren activated his mind power. The god's head that was clambering under his feet instantly exploded. Chapter 771. Indeed, very tragic. Green Robe could not help but shake his head when he saw the deity's head explode. The other deity trembled in fear when he saw his comrade's death. However, Chu Kuangren did not spare him either. He unleashed the frozen thought technique. The deity instantly turned into a pile of ice shards. With Chu Kuangren's current strength, killing a few upper deities in an instant was as easy as lifting a finger. Then he kept the deities' godheads. These godheads contained powerful energy, and to him, they would be the source of energy to open the river of time in the future. After killing two upper deities, the people of the Yanwu tribe were so scared that they stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move. As for the wild beasts, they were trembling in fear. The ferocious chi on their bodies had completely disappeared, and they were as obedient as kittens and puppies. Chu Kuangren glanced at the wild beasts and retracted his mind power. However, they dared not escape. They knew very well that as long as Chu Kuangren did not say anything, their lives would not be in their hands. "Go guard the gate," Chu Kuangren said. "Guard the gate?" Everyone was speechless when they heard that. These were all famous ominous beasts. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to ask them to guard the gate. The wild beasts felt aggrieved too. What the hell? How could he ask them to guard the gate? They were wild beasts after all. Did they not care about their pride? "Why, you're not going?" Chu Kuangren said. No, I love guarding the gate the most. Yes, look at my physique. I was born to guard the gate." A few wild beasts quickly said and ran to the gate of the Yanwu tribe, scaring the guards half to death. Yanwu took a deep breath and came before Chu Kuangren. "Brother, I thank you on behalf of the tribe for saving our tribe from danger. From now on you will be our most distinguished guest." "You're too kind, tribe leader." Under Yanwu's invitation, Chu Kuangren and Green Robe temporarily settled in the Yanwu tribe. At the same time, they were also inspecting the area. "Master, I would like to be your disciple." A strong man knelt before Chu Kuangren. This strong man was the #1 warrior in the Yanwu tribe. His cultivation was second only to Yanwu, and it could be said that his cultivation was almost the same as Qingyi's. With this strength, he was sought after by many people in the Yanwu tribe and was loved and respected by many. He also swore to protect the tribe. But after the attack of the ferocious beasts and after seeing the power of the gods, he realized how insignificant the power he was so proud of was. That was why he made the move of acknowledging Zhang Xian as his master today. Chu Kuangren shook his head. Seeing him shake his head, Atu panicked. "Could it be that my lord thinks that I'm lacking in talent and doesn't want to teach me? No, I can teach you, but there's no need for you to take me as your master." "Thank you, my lord." Atu was overjoyed. At this time Yanwu walked over. When he saw Atu kneeling on the ground, he couldn't help but feel curious. "Atu, what happened to you? Did you make Brother Tsang unhappy?" After spending a few days together, Chu Kuangren's relationship with Yanwu had improved quite a bit. He had also changed the way he addressed Yanwu from fellow Taoist to Brother Tsang. "No, I'm asking Lord Tsang to guide me in my cultivation." "Nonsense, Brother Tsang is a psychic. Psychic power and chi refinement are two different things. How can he guide you?" Yanwu said. Atu was stunned as he did not know about this. "But Lord Tsang said he can teach me. As far as I know, people without the talent and psychic power can't cultivate psychic power." Yanwu was also a little confused. "I can't teach you psychic power, but I do know a thing or two about chi refinement." Chu Kuangren smiled. Yanwu looked at Chu Kuangren doubtfully. "But why didn't I sense any chi refinement aura from Brother Tsang? I didn't cultivate." Chu Kuangren said matter-of-factly. Yen Wu's mouth twitched. Not a qi refinement cultivator, but he said he knew qi refinement. This, Brother Tsang, are you really reliable? You won't cripple Ren school, will you? But who said I don't know qi refinement without qi refinement? Chu Kuangren smirked. When it came to qi refinement, as someone who came from the future, his experience was definitely above that of the cultivators of this era. In order to dispel Yen Wu's doubts, Chu Kuangren discussed the qi refinement Dao with Yen Wu, which shocked him. I didn't expect Brother Tsang to be so proficient in qi refinement as well as in qi refinement. I'm really surprised. Yen Wu said in admiration. Then he said seriously, Brother Tsang, I've been promoting qi refinement cultivation in the tribe recently. Since you're so proficient in qi refinement, I'm sure you'll be of help. I'd like to invite you to stay here for a long time. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he heard that. He then chuckled and said, I've killed a deity. Aren't you afraid that the deities will come to seek revenge and implicate the whole tribe? Yen Wu looked like he was struggling, but it was soon replaced by determination. Qi refinement is a way for humans to strengthen themselves. Instead of living under the oppression of the deities, I'd rather take the risk. You won't regret it. I'll regret it if I let go of a genius like Brother Tsang. Coincidentally, I also want to pass on what I've learned. Since tribe leader has the courage, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Chu Kuangren laughed. It was impossible for him to overthrow the rule of the deities alone. The humans needed to strengthen themselves. It was the entire human race that needed to strengthen themselves, not just one person. Therefore he planned to pass on what he had learned to a portion of the human race to become stronger, and then pass it on to the next generation. After a few days of observation, he found that the Yen Wu tribe was suitable for him to implement this plan, so he agreed to Yen Wu's request. Not long after, the cultivators of the Yen Wu tribe gathered. Chu Kuangren planned to teach them about Dao. Although his cultivation level was gone, his understanding of Dao and Dao techniques were still there. What is cultivation? Cultivation is qi refinement, refining the natural spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Chu Kuangren began to teach, and waves of Taoist rhymes spread. In an instant, the heavenly Tao sensed it and was shaken. On that day, the entire Yen Wu tribe was shrouded in Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhymes. The sky was filled with golden lotuses, auspicious clouds, auspicious dragons and phoenixes, and many other heavenly Taoist transformations. Brother Tsang, you're exaggerating. Yen Wu gulped and looked at Chu Kuangren, who was bathed in the heavenly Tao's radiance and looked like a Taoist ancestor. The cultivators of the Yen Wu tribe were also shocked to the extreme. Even some of the surrounding tribes rushed over after seeing such a phenomenon and learned that someone in the Yen Wu tribe was giving a Taoist sermon. Everyone could not help but feel excited. After all, only an immortal from the outer heavens could give a Taoist sermon to such a phenomenon in ancient times. That time, it directly raised the cultivation civilization of Firmament Star to a whole new level. Could it be that another immortal had appeared in the Yen Wu tribe? In an instant, the human cultivators who heard the news rushed to the Yen Wu tribe to listen to the immortal's sermon. The commotion caused by this sermon was huge. Not only the human race but even the gods were alarmed. Chapter 772. To be able to talk about such a heavenly Tao phenomenon, could it be that this person is an immortal? Another immortal has come to Firmament Star? No, there's no qi refinement aura on him at all. He can't be an immortal. Besides, he's from the Divine Thought tribe. How could he suddenly become an immortal? It's impossible. Then how do we explain this transformation? That's right. As far as I know, only that immortal can cause such a phenomenon during a Taoist lecture. How did he do it? How could there be such a guy in the human race? Is he really a human? The overgods gathered in the godly mountain. They were all discussing Chu Kuangren. The heavenly Tao transformation had completely shattered their understanding of the world. From what they could remember, the last time the heavenly Tao caused such a huge commotion was during an immortal's Taoist lecture in the previous era. That immortal had left an indelible impression on them. Immortals are too terrifying. Just one attack was enough to put a heavenly master into a deep slumber. If Tsang really is an immortal, then we mustn't provoke him anymore. The underworld god took a deep breath and said. The frost overgod could not help but shudder. After all, he had planted the frost mark on Tsang back then, causing him to suffer from frost chi corrosion. Now that Tsang was so powerful, what should he do if he came to seek revenge? That's not right. If Tsang really is an immortal, why would I plant the frost mark on him back then? The Frost Overgod frowned and said. The Overgods were also confused. Alright, before the Heavenly Master awakens, let's ignore Tsang for now. Let's focus on observation and find out more about him. A Overgod in a silver-white robe said. Hearing his words, everyone nodded slightly. The Temporal Overgod is right. Let's do as you say. Alright, let's not touch him for now. The Temporal Overgod was a powerhouse among the 33 Overgods, second only to the Heavenly Master. When the Heavenly Master was not around, he would be the leader of the Overgods. On the other side, in the Yenwu tribe, Chu Kuangren was almost done with his Taoist sermon. Down below, the countless cultivators of the Yenwu tribe were listening in fascination. Even further away in the mountains, there were also many cultivators listening to him. Some of them had already entered a state of enlightenment. After the lecture ended, everyone seemed as if they wished to continue. They stared at Chu Kuangren helplessly. Don't stop, continue. The more the merrier. We can still listen. The corner of Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched. He had been preaching for a full 3 days this time. Although he had taken the fasting pill beforehand, he could not help but feel thirsty. His body could not take it anymore. Sure enough, this ordinary body was not a good feeling to use. It seemed that he had to find a way to strengthen his physical fitness. It was impossible to cultivate. In any case, after returning to the future, his cultivation would recover. In this era he planned to focus on improving his soul power. Let's refine some body-strengthening pills. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. This lecture ends here, Yi Zichen said. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The lecture ended, and the various phenomena of the Heaven Tao dissipated. Everyone sighed and they could not help but feel a sense of loss. They really hoped that Chu Kuangren could continue. His Qi refinement experience was too much of a help to them. If the Immortals' Taoist preaching in the past opened up their macro understanding of cultivation and gave them a general direction for cultivation, then Chu Kuangren's Taoist preaching complemented and perfected many minor details of cultivation. Both were equally important. We thank Lord Tsang. The cultivators of the Yenwu tribe got up one after another and bowed to Chu Kuangren, their faces filled with deep gratitude. Hearing the Tao in the morning, one can die without regrets. Chu Kuangren's Taoist preaching this time was too much of a help to them. In the distance, the cultivators in the mountains also bowed respectfully to Chu Kuangren and then left. After this lecture, Chu Kuangren's prestige in the Yenwu tribe greatly increased. Countless cultivators regarded him as a teacher. Even the respect of the Yenwu tribe towards Chu Kuangren increased day by day. Even some deity believers gradually entered the ranks of cultivators, and they no longer blindly worshipped the deities as before. Time flew by and several months had passed. In these few months, in addition to guiding the cultivators in the Yenwu tribe in cultivation, Chu Kuangren also slowly passed on auxiliary skills such as alchemy and equipment refinement, setting off a cultivation revolution. Alchemists, equipment refiners, and so on correspondingly appeared. Chu Kuangren's actions also allowed the Yenwu tribe to continue to grow, earning him a good reputation as a sage. Yenwu tribe. Inside a room. Chu Kuangren took out a pill and swallowed it. The pill turned into a warm current that swept through his body as soon as it entered his stomach, constantly strengthening his physical body so that it was no longer as weak as before. At this time, Chu Kuangren was no longer as sickly as he looked a few months ago. He was full of youthful energy and handsome. A very energetic young man. In addition, his prestige in the Yenwu tribe had been increasing these days, and many young girls in the tribe had fallen in love with him. This made Chu Kuangren a little emotional. I've changed my face but I'm still so popular. Sure enough, it's all because of my personal charm. However, he still missed his original appearance. If he maxed out his personal charm and appearance, that would be his true self. Although his current body was not bad looking, it was still not handsome enough compared to his original appearance. Brother Tsang, someone is here to see you. At that moment, Yenwu's emperor's thought came. Got it? Chu Kuangren replied with his emperor's thought. He then went to the great hall. Here an old man was talking to Yenwu. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, the old man immediately stood up and walked towards him. He said respectfully, Greetings, Tsang sage. I'm Fenrir. The current Chu Kuangren was known as a sage. After that sermon, when the human cultivators mentioned him, they would all call him a sage to show their respect. Brother Fenrir, you're welcome. Chu Kuangren glanced at Fenrir and could tell that his cultivation level was much higher than Yenwu's. He was an upper heavenly honorable. It was his first time seeing an upper heavenly honorable cultivator in this era. Song Xingxian, I came here mainly for these two items. Fenrir took out a pill and a sword. Oh, is there a problem with these things? Chu Kuangren asked curiously. Seeing his calm expression, Fenrir could not help but take a deep breath and said solemnly, these two things were passed down from the Yanwu tribe. I heard that they were invented by Tsang's sage. Yes, the pill is a qi refining pill that can increase a cultivator's cultivation efficiency. The sword is a magic weapon that can increase the cultivator's power through nurturing. Is there a problem? Chu Kuangren smiled. There's a big problem. Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's explanation, Fenrir's breathing gradually quickened. If these two things can be mass-produced, it'll be a great help to the human cultivators. Chapter 773. Equipment Refinement, Alchemy. In this era where most cultivators only knew how to do qi refinement, it was definitely an epic-making cultivation technique. Hence, when Wind Valley saw things like medicinal pills and magical weapons, he was so shocked that it almost shattered his worldview. Now the inventor, Chu Kuangren, was standing in front of him. Not only that, but he also acted as if he was unfazed, as if he was making a big fuss out of nothing. Wind Valley could not help but feel a little emotional. Chu Kuangren was too extraordinary. Every time he talked about Taoism, it would be like a deluge of heavenly flowers and heavenly transformations. Now that he had casually come up with two new things, it was enough to shock the human cultivators. Is this a sage? He really is from a different dimension than us. Song Xingxian, I'd like to ask if these two things can be mass-produced? Wind Valley asked expectantly. Of course. That's great. Wind Valley was extremely excited when they got the answer they were waiting for. It's just that I can't produce too many by myself. I'm currently teaching the people of the Yanwu tribe how to refine medicinal pills and equipment. Once they grow up, they can use medicinal pills and magical weapons on the entire human race. Chu Kuangren laughed. Wind Valley was shocked to hear that. Song Xingxian, what did you say? You plan to teach this technique to others? And it was not just one or two people. It was the entire Yanwu tribe. My abilities alone are limited, I can't refine many medicinal pills and magical weapons. Only with everyone's help can this technique be brought to life. Chu Kuangren said matter-of-factly. Both Wind Valley and Yanwu were instantly filled with respect. After all, Chu Kuangren's equipment and alchemy techniques could be said to be one of a kind in this era. As long as he was willing with these two techniques, he could easily obtain wealth, status, and power. However, he was willing to spread this technique and share it with everyone else for the sake of the entire human race. With such breadth of mind, he truly deserved the title of sage. In Wind Valley, Yanwu's respect and admiration for Chu Kuangren was like a torrential river that flowed endlessly. Song Xingxian said that his abilities are limited, but from what I can see, Song Xingxian is turning his limited abilities into infinite possibilities. The human race has Song Xingxian, the heavens bless the human race. Wind Valley said emotionally. Beside him, Yanwu continuously nodded in agreement. I have seen many people in my life, but most of them are selfish. There are very few who are as selfless as Song Xingxian, who thinks for the human race wholeheartedly. If the human race had more people like Song Xingxian, there would be no need to worry about the human race not prospering, and there would be no need to fear the gods. That's right. Sage Tsang's contribution is worthy of the heavenly Tao's testimony. It should be recorded in the annals of human history and praised by future generations. Chu Kuangren felt a little embarrassed when he heard the flattery from both of them. Alchemy and equipment refinement were all things that he had learned in the future. Even without him, the human race would have invented these things sooner or later. You two are being too serious. As a fellow human, this is merely something that I should do. Chu Kuangren hurriedly stopped the two of them from flattering him. If they continued to flatter him like that, he would feel like he was floating. Sage Tsang is indeed a sage. Even after achieving such a feat, he is still so humble. How rare, how rare. I'm convinced. If it was someone else, they would have long been arrogant to the extreme. The heart of a sage is indeed different from that of ordinary people. Chu Kuangren was speechless. Fine, I might as well not say it. On the other hand, Qingyi could not help but show a hint of admiration in his eyes when he saw how Fenrir and Yanwu were flattering Chu Kuangren. These two are really right. Young master is indeed such a person. After that, Fenrir and Chu Kuangren continued to chat about alchemy and equipment refinement. When he found out that there were different grades of medicinal pills and equipment, and that the medicinal pills and equipment he brought were only of the normal grade, he was extremely shocked. He realized that he had still underestimated the potential of medicinal pills and equipment. If these two items are developed, it will definitely be able to greatly advance the human race's cultivation progress. It will be a great achievement for all eternity. In Fenrir, Yenwu looked at Chu Kuangren with a fiery gaze. The admiration in his eyes were almost gushing out. Chu Kuangren sighed. These two are going to praise me again. Forget it. Come on, praise me hard. I can handle it. However, after a while he still did not hear anything from the two of them. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. Why aren't they praising me this time? Fenrir suddenly sighed. Brother Fenrir, why are you sighing? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. If they were not going to praise him, then so be it. Why were they sighing? Were they going to scold him? That would be too much. I'm sighing. Why didn't I study hard back then? Now, I can't think of the right words to express Zhang Xingxian's achievements. Fenrir sighed. Beside him, Yenwu shook his head and said, words are no longer enough to describe Zhang Xingxian's great achievements for the human race. Chu Kuangren was speechless. He did not know what else to say, so he could only go with the flow. Not long after, Fenrir left the Yenwu tribe. He said that he would find some people to learn alchemy and equipment refinement in a few days. Chu Kuangren did not reject him. Yenwu did not reject him either. Fenrir's identity was not simple. He was one of the strong people behind the human race, so he could not reject him even if he wanted to. After Fenrir left the Yenwu tribe, he came to a dark valley. At the end of the valley stood a towering pavilion. A letter, to the Reverse God Pavilion. He walked into the pavilion, and candles were lit up in the dark against the God Pavilion, illuminating a dozen silhouettes. Fenrir, did you see Tsang during your trip to the Yenwu tribe? An indifferent voice was heard. I did. Oh, what do you think of him? This person truly lives up to his name as a sage. In fact, if I may say something disrespectful, I think this person is more outstanding than any sage in history, Fenrir said solemnly. The people in the Reverse God Pavilion could not help but be shocked at his words. You have such an evaluation of him? No, this is not my evaluation. This should be the evaluation of the future generations. In this era, no one has the right to evaluate him. The crowd could not help but fall silent for a while. Fenrir, don't you think you're exaggerating? Not at all. After that, Fenrir took out some medicinal pills and magic weapons and recounted his meeting with Chu Kuangren. After listening, the crowd once again fell into silence. After a while, a voice was heard. Sage Tsang, what a great person. If what Fenrir said is true, then his generosity and achievements are indeed worthy to be recorded in the annals of history and be remembered by the future generations. These magic weapons and medicinal pills are of great help to human cultivators. What kind of genius is this? How deep must his understanding of cultivation be to be able to create such a technique? I heard that when this person was preaching, a phenomenon that only happens when immortals preach about Taoism appeared. I didn't believe it at first, but now I'm convinced. I must be on good terms with this person. This Tsang is of great importance to the human race. We must pay close attention to this person. If he needs any help, try your best to satisfy him. After hearing Fenrir's story, the human cultivators of the Reverse God Pavilion came to a consensus that they must be on good terms with Chu Kuangren. Chapter 774. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the God Tier 9 Transformations Tri-Elemental Soul Refinement Technique. On this day, Chu Kuangren had just finished drawing his rewards. The cultivation technique that he obtained caused him to reveal an expression of surprise. It was another God Tier cultivation technique. This was his second time obtaining a God Tier technique. The last time he obtained it was the Immortal Stellar Physique. The soul refinement technique sounded like a technique related to the soul. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He had been wanting to focus on cultivating the soul, and it just so happened that he had obtained a God Tier technique related to the soul. That was great. Chu Kuangren could not wait to retrieve the technique. Suddenly, a large amount of mystery surfaced in his mind. After a while, he had completely absorbed the God Tier technique in his mind. What a great 9 transformations tri-elemental soul refinement technique. This technique is not inferior to the Immortal Stellar Physique. In fact, it's even better. This God Tier technique is amazing. Chu Kuangren knew that at his level of cultivation, there were not many things in this world that could shock him. However, this 9 transformations tri-elemental soul refinement technique was so mysterious that even he could not help but exclaim in admiration. The 9 transformations tri-elemental soul refinement technique was indeed a technique that specialized in cultivating the soul. The 9 transformations referred to the 9 realms of this technique. The 3 realms referred to the cultivation process of this technique. This cultivation technique could allow one to cultivate 3 souls. That's right, 3 souls. The 3 souls were heaven, earth, and human. Cultivating 1 soul into 3? Such a thing was almost unimaginable. However, this technique could be achieved by cultivating 3 souls and then merging them together. After repeating this process 9 times, this technique would be considered complete and the soul would reach the immortal realm. Cultivate. Without another word, Chu Kuangren began to cultivate this technique. His soul energy was now very strong, so he could cultivate it all the way to the 3rd transformation in one go. Very quickly, his soul power began to split apart, transforming into a soul body that looked exactly the same. This was the Earth Soul. Soon, the human soul was also separated. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed. Above his head, the 3 Bodhi souls in the form of the heaven, earth, and human souls looked at each other. Hello. Chu Kuangren's heavenly soul greeted the Earth Soul and human soul. Although this cultivation technique could split a soul into 3, there was only one original soul. That was the heavenly soul. This would also ensure that the 3 souls would not suddenly fight for some reason. It would be awkward if they killed themselves. Hello. The Earth Soul nodded slightly. This feeling is truly marvelous. The human souls looked at the heaven souls, and the Earth souls could not help but click their tongues in wonder. The 3 souls had the same consciousness and memories, but they were also independent of each other. This feeling was too wonderful. I'm talking to myself now. Why do I feel like I have split personality disorder? Tianhun said playfully. Strictly speaking, the 3 of us have the same personality, so it doesn't count as a split personality. The Earth Soul couldn't help but correct him. Alright, that's enough chit-chat. Let's fuse. The human soul said. The man soul and the Earth Soul turned into 2 rays of light and quickly merged into the heaven soul's body, fusing into 1 soul again. The first revolution of the 9 revolutions 3 elements was complete. Chu Kuangren once again activated the 9 transformations 3 elemental soul refinement technique. He then split into 3 souls. We meet again. The heaven soul greeted. Can you stop being naughty? The Earth Soul rolled its eyes. Aren't I you? The Earth Soul could not refute. I feel like my soul energy has grown a little stronger. The human soul said. Not only in quantity, but the quality has also become purer. The Earth Soul felt its own soul energy and said. Let's fuse. The Earth Soul and the human soul once again fused into the heaven soul. The 3 souls fused into 1 and the 2nd revolution was complete. Then came the 3rd revolution. The 3 souls were formed again. Hello you guys, cut the crap. Let's fuse. The 3 souls fused again and the 3rd revolution was complete. When the 3rd revolution was completed, Chu Kuangren felt that his soul energy had increased a lot. No, it was not only his soul energy but his perception and understanding of the Tao had also increased. This 9 revolutions 3 elements refinement technique is incredible. Not only can it improve soul energy, but it can also improve one's perception. Wait a minute, does that mean that when I study techniques in the future, there will be 3 of me? Chu Kuangren suddenly thought of something and was speechless. He channeled the soul refinement technique and wanted to proceed to the 4th revolution. However, after half a day, all that was produced was a gray ball of soul fire. That was the soul fire of the Earth Soul. However, there was still a long way to go before it could take shape. Have I reached my limit? Chu Kuangren murmured. He could quickly complete the first 3 revolutions because his soul energy had reached the requirements, but the 4th revolution would not be so easy. In order to refine an Earth Soul, he had to double his current soul power. 3 souls meant 3 times the amount of soul force. Being able to quickly cultivate the first 3 revolutions is already a huge gain. I'll take my time with the 4th revolution. Chu Kuangren said. His soul returned to his physical body and he opened his eyes. His emperor's thoughts surged and quickly covered the entire Yanwu tribe. From the conversations of the people, he found out that he had spent a month cultivating the 9 revolutions 3 elements refinement technique. Wind Valley had already returned, and they even brought a group of cultivators with them to learn alchemy and equipment crafting. I guess I'll meet them then. Chu Kuangren walked out of his room and found the Yanwu tribe in Wind Valley. Song Sage, you're finally out. The Yanwu tribe in Wind Valley greeted him. They did not know if it was an illusion, but Wind Valley felt that although Chu Kuangren still had no cultivation, he seemed to have become more mysterious. Good heavens! It's only been a month and there's already such a change. The sage is indeed a sage. Wind Valley's eyes were filled with respect. Yes, Brother Wind Valley, I've heard about the people you've brought. From now on, let them stay in the Yenwu tribe to learn alchemy and equipment crafting. Chu Kuangren smiled. Thank you, sage. After that, Chu Kuangren went to meet the cultivators from Wind Valley. All of these cultivators were the cream of the crop among the humans. If they were to be placed in the afterworld, they would all be top-notch sky prides. Chu Kuangren frowned and said, alchemy and equipment crafting are not as simple as chi refinement. You need to invest a lot of time and effort into it. If you're distracted, you'll only achieve nothing. Hence, this will delay your progress in chi refinement. I hope you'll consider this carefully before you make a decision. Upon hearing that, the cultivators looked at each other and hesitated. Sage, is there no way to have the best of both worlds? Unless you're an extremely talented person, I suggest that you focus on one path of cultivation. If you feel that you're not suited for chi refinement, you can try out equipment crafting or alchemy, Chu Kuangren said. Looks like I've been too greedy, Wind Valley said. You can't have your cake and eat it too. How can you have everything you want? After all, how many sages were there in this world? I want to stay here. At that moment, a cultivator said. It was a young, brawny man. His cultivation level was not considered outstanding among the group. In fact, it could even be said that he was at the bottom. He held an iron sword in his hand and looked at Chu Kuangren with an infatuated look in his eyes. He then said seriously, Sage, I want to learn equipment crafting. Chapter 775. Sage, I want to learn how to craft equipment. The young man said to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren looked at the young man and narrowed his eyes. He felt that this man looked familiar. Where had he seen him before? The more he looked at him, the more familiar he felt. What's your name? My name is Scarlet Sunday, Scarlet Sun. Chu Kuangren remembered now. Wasn't this the Scarlet Sun Taoist master, one of the 24 Taoist masters? Was he the one who taught him how to craft equipment? The affairs of the world were too wonderful. He suddenly remembered that his descendant self-sword was still with him. He wondered how it was doing now. It should have been reforged by now. If you want to learn how to craft equipment, then stay. Chu Kuangren smiled gently. Then some people stayed while others left. A sage had appeared in the Yenwu tribe. The news spread like wildfire and countless tribes sent people to investigate. Although only a few of them managed to see Chu Kuangren, the Yenwu tribe's growth was undeniable. The sage's words were confirmed. Time flew by and a few months had passed. These few months were not long, but the changes that they brought to the Yenwu tribe were unprecedented, comparable to the passage of time. Besides the increase in the number of cultivators, cultivation methods such as alchemy and equipment crafting had greatly improved the cultivation conditions of the cultivators in the tribe. As a result, many human cultivators were attracted to join the tribe. There were 10 major tribes in the firmament star. Among them, the strongest was called the Star Slayer tribe. Although the Yenwu tribe was also one of the 10 major tribes, it was the weakest. However, Chu Kuangren's arrival had increased the strength of the Yenwu tribe by leaps and bounds. Vaguely, they were already catching up to the Star Slayer tribe. In the Star Slayer tribe, a middle-aged man sat on a leather chair. The man was tall and sturdy and his eyes were bright like the stars. This man was the leader of the Star Slayer tribe, Slayer Star. Slayer Star was extraordinary. He was known as the wisest leader in the history of the human race. Under his leadership, the Star Slayer tribe slowly grew from a small tribe of 1,000 people to the leader of the human race today. Hence, Slayer Star was the most legendary human of this era. But strictly speaking, he was only half a human, because he was the son of a human god. They were the offspring born from the union of man and god. In this land where humans and gods lived together, the union between humans and gods was not that rare. If some gods fancied some human women, they could also take them as their own. In the eyes of many humans, this was an honor. However, due to the difference in physique between humans and gods, it was basically impossible for their union to produce offspring. However, Zhanxing was an accident. In the long history of the human race, there was only one case of this happening in the history of the gods. It was precisely because of this uniqueness that Zhanxing had been the center of attention the moment he was born, growing up amidst the expectations of countless people. The gods wanted to use him to control the human race, and the human race saw him as a gift from the gods. They took good care of him and waited for him to grow up to be their master. Zhanxing did not disappoint them. The bloodline of a god had given him great power, allowing him to easily conquer all the tribes. The bloodline of a human had allowed him to train his chi and cultivate, constantly improving his strength. Not even the gods could do such a thing. Interesting stuff. Zhan Xing was currently holding an elixir and a weapon in his hands. His eyes shone brightly. It said that a sage has appeared in the Yanwu tribe. It looks like that's really the case. Beside him, a muscular man wearing tiger skin said, "Chief, if the Yanwu tribe continues to develop like this, it will definitely become a threat to us in the future. Should we find someone to get rid of that sage?" The muscular man didn't care about the sage. In his eyes, anyone who threatened the chief or threatened his tribe deserved to die. Hearing the muscular man's words, Zhan Xing said indifferently, "There's no need for that for now. However, we can fight for this sage. Send someone with generous gifts to the Yanwu tribe and ask if he's willing to come to our Zhan Star tribe to develop." Not long after, the Zhan Star tribe sent out an emissary. This emissary was very arrogant and didn't care about the development of the Yanwu tribe. In his eyes, although the Yanwu tribe was also one of the 10 major tribes, it was far inferior to the Zhan Star tribe. He walked on the streets of the Yanwu tribe with 2 followers behind him. Looking at the tribesmen dressed in coarse linen clothes around him, his eyes revealed disdain. How can a sage be born in a place like this? He shook his head. People nowadays tend to exaggerate. Just a little bit of merit and they'll be called a sage. How many sages have there been in the human race for so many years? If there really is a sage in this era, it'll be our chief. He's the son of the gods, only then can he bear the title of sage. When the Yanwu tribe guard who was leading the way heard him, he couldn't help but frown with a dissatisfied look on his face. During this period of time, Chu Kuangren's prestige in the tribe had been growing day by day. Of course, they couldn't stand others slandering him. However, the person in front of him was an emissary from the Zhan Star tribe, which was the largest tribe in the human race. Clang, clang, clang. At that moment, the sound of metal clanking came from somewhere on the street. The Zhan Star emissary frowned and said, "What's that noise? It's so noisy it's annoying." He walked towards the direction of the sound. All he saw was a brawny man holding a hammer in his hand. He was hammering on a red-hot piece of metal repeatedly. That piece of metal gradually changed shape and became a long strip. "What are they doing?" "They're refining weapons," the Yanwu tribe guard said. The Zhan Star emissary looked around and noticed that there were several racks with weapons on them. Any one of those weapons was more outstanding than the best weapons in the Zhan Star tribe. There was a sharp glint on them that sent chills down one's spine. There were also strange patterns on them. He gulped, picked up a sword, and injected his spiritual energy into it. A sword ray suddenly shot out from the sword, and with a casual slash, it tore a deep sword mark on the ground. The Zhan Star emissary's pupils shrank. In the past, he would have to use at least 30% of his strength to leave a sword mark like that. However, he did it without using even 1% of his strength just now. This weapon is too amazing. He looked at the weapons on display in front of him as if he was looking at a treasure. Then he picked up a long sword and tried it. It also had the same effect of increasing his spiritual energy. "What are you doing?" Qi Yang, who was refining weapons, glanced at the Zhan Star emissary. The Zhan Star emissary immediately said respectfully, "Sir, may I ask if this is the so-called refining method?" "That's right." "Are there many refiners like you, sir?" "It's all right. I've only learned it not long ago," Qi Yang said casually. Hearing this, the Zhan Star emissary was dumbfounded. "I've only learned it not long ago, yet I can already create a bunch of divine weapons. What kind of level has the legendary sage who created this refining method reached?" At this moment, the contempt in his heart was swept away, and he felt unprecedented fear towards this sage who he had never met before. If such a person can't be used by the Zhan Star tribe, he will definitely become the tribe's biggest enemy. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.